Hello, you're listening to a Talk Spirit Anime Cast. My name is Andrew, and I'm joined here with Chris.
Yo.
Today's episode is our fall 2024 anime season first impressions. It's time to go through all the shows, which I think I counted like my list right now is like 45. So it's probably going to be another four-parter first impressions, maybe a couple weeks of doing some other stuff before we go right into the reviews. But of course, this season, after the end of the season, we got to go into, yes, the best of the year. The end of the year is so freaking crazy for podcasting. It's just like, oh, there's so much stuff that we got to do. It's nuts. But anyways, again, like I said, we have like 40 some plus shows to go through. So definitely stick around. If you don't hear your show in this list, we'll get around to it eventually. Or we just didn't care about your show and you didn't get covered. That could be it too.
It's still the best show ever.
Yes, your shows are the best shows ever, as always. But yes, as always, we're at talkspirit.com. It's where you can go for our links, social media links, ways to get a hold of us, ways to support us. We greatly appreciate it. Greatly appreciate everybody that supports the channel. But yes, with that said, let's just dive into it because I don't know how much time we have because Chris is super late. I'm just joking. So we got to rag on Chris. Everybody, just rag on Chris about how late he is. And so if we didn't cover your show today, it's because he was late.
It's probably it.
But anyways, let's kick things off with Loner Life in Another World. Loner Life in Another World, I would say probably the biggest surprise for me. You said you watched it, right? Mm-hmm. I'm actually enjoying it a lot more than I thought I would. It's like this is one of those shows where when you see the PV and stuff like that.
No, you only like it because there's a whole bunch of gyos that absolutely
I do
love
like
it.
the president too. The president is really cute. I don't know why that guy's not just completely jumping on that whole thing there, but anyways, we'll get to that. Loner Life in Another World, or Hitori Bochi no Isekai Kiroryaku. This one's streaming on High Dive, running for 12 episodes, done by Hayabusa Films and Passione, based on a light novel. Action, adventure, fantasies is the genres. This one opens up with Haruka. And Haruka, in his classroom, he's a loner. Just doesn't really communicate with other people. It's not that he doesn't like people. It's just that if he does communicate with people, it takes away from him reading his books. He just wants to be alone, his own time, do his own thing, and he doesn't want the hassle of other people. Well, unfortunately for him, while he's in his classroom, suddenly a teleportation circle appears just right in the middle of the classroom. It starts spreading and everybody's kind of panicking. He's like nope. He just nopes the situation. He's like, I know what this is. This is an isekai thing. It's going to transport me to another world. That's too troublesome. I got to get the hell out of here. He tries to get out the door won't open, and then he realized there's like this little duct in the ceiling, so he climbs up in there and he's like, good, seifu, they can't get up here. And then suddenly the circle starts to absorb inside the little chamber that he's in. But yeah, he gets transported to this white room, and suddenly he's looking around, and suddenly this old man comes running up like, "Oh man, what the heck? You're late or whatever." But yeah, he gets shown this big wall that's full of all these skills, and apparently it's first come first serve. And so all the other students came there before him, got their skills, and then they left. And now he needs to pick one of the remaining ones, and it's just nothing but garbage stuff like Village Set A. Contact lens or something like that. Just all these really dumb skills. Just the bottom of the barrel. And so he's like, what the hell, dude? Give me better skills than this. You brought me here. And then the old man's like, whatever, this is troublesome. Take the rest of it and go. And he just gives him all the rest of the skills and then sends him back to this other world where everybody else is at. There, yeah, he starts to kind of figure out how he can survive, setting up his own place. He kind of just makes the best of it, makes a little house and everything. Like usual with these types of stories.
He finds Villager Set A is actually pretty decent.
Yeah, it has like a bottomless bag in it. There's like this compressing skill that depending on what he uses it on can have different various effects. Like he can make a weapon like really, really strong. Just all these different things that he can use with it. Of course, all the most useless skills are actually OP depending on how you use it. So it gets in that whole thing. The contact lens is like identifies everything for him and all that kind of stuff. He builds a house using his compressing skill, or is it compact? Something like that. Then over time, eventually, he ends up running into the other students. At first, he runs into the nerds. The nerds explain what happened when the other students got there. They made a camp. The president tried to keep everybody together, assign people roles. Eventually, the gyarus and everybody else is like the delinquents. They don't want to work. And then eventually, there was like this fear that delinquents were going to use their charm and... What was the other one they had? There was charm and something else they had. They knew what... They kind of got an idea who was selecting what skills. And yes, they were kind of afraid that these... delinquents were leveling up in order to use the charm on the girls. So they end up knocking out the delinquents, sealing their skills because one of the nerds had a seal ability, and that kind of caused everybody kind of separate. So yeah, upon learning that, the nerds go and they go to the town so they can become adventurers. Eventually, he runs into the girls, runs into the Gyarus. They want to apologize to the nerds. Then he runs into the rest of the girls, and they all want him to help them get to the town, and that's when he takes them all there. But yeah, that's kind of the premise setup so far. So, what's your thoughts so far on Loner Life in Another World? Am I alone here? This is actually a really enjoyable show.
I'm enjoying it.
Is it because of the nudist girl, the girl that constantly wants to take off her clothes? I haven't seen that.
You haven't
seen the nudist girl?
Sounds like you have one episode up on me. The last thing I seen was the Gyarus. They were wanting to apologize. Yeah, he subjugated the Gyarus. Yeah,
How did that explain it? Because when I was doing my first impressions, even then I was kind of confused. It implied that he had a special... When he went there, he got a special status, which was loner. And it said something to the effect that he can't party with people and with that stat. And I think it almost implied that if he did party with people, it would be having to be them being subjugated. Or is it just that his stats from the loner status only applies when he's not in a party? Because it kind of had this whole screen where it kind of transitioned over to subjugate, and it says, like, you can subjugate other people. And I was like, okay, is that implying that he can't party with people unless they're subjugated?
I don't know.
Because, yes, the girls were like, hey, help us find the nerds. And he's like, okay, subjugate. And he's like literally walking everybody, and these girls have like these dead eyes as they're falling around. He knocks out this mob, and this girl just jumps on top of it and starts stabbing it while it's down. And he's like, this is kind of creepy because they're just kind of staring. Oh, you have an injury. Here, you want a potion? She just takes it and goes, just like, I just love the sound effects too, because they had like this whole like JRPG like 16-bit layout where they're walking in a party, and then he just like clunks over to them, and there's this, they have like this little humming noise they make in response to everything. And he's like, please, your eyes look dead. It was such a cute little segment. Sorry, go ahead.
But yeah, so far I've been enjoying it. Not too keen on the visuals.
Like half the time it looks good, but half the time it doesn't. It's usually the girls. Like I think they did a really good job with the girls and their designs, but like everything else is like it's barely there.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I would venture a guess to say this show offends me on its visuals.
It's not that bad.
Yeah, no, I've seen some really bad stuff. There was when the delinquents were destroying the camp, that looked horrible. I'm just plain horrible.
You offended me. It's hard to offend Chris when it comes to visuals, so you guys got to take note on that one. I think the ED looks really good. It's got the vice rep girl sitting there, and there's like goblins all playing with like flower crowns. It's funny how they keep implying that some of the monsters are kind of cool. Like when the girls were training, they like were fighting kobolds, and they kept getting their butt kicked. And eventually, finally, they overcame the kobolds. And there's like this whole like kinship that comes from it. Like they handshake with the kobold, like thank you so much. Like they didn't kill the kobolds, they just like became friends or something. So it almost implies like they're I guess the goblins and at least the goblins and kobolds are okay. Like they're cool.
But
except for the one that Gyaru stabbed to death. That one's dead.
But all in all, like I said, I've enjoyed it so far. It's been really a weird take on this genre, so I'm absolutely going for it. Let's see where it goes.
I will say, like early on, episode 1, I didn't like. This is one of those ones where I recommend most people probably watch at least up to the subjugating of the Gyarus segment, because that was kind of the biggest funny that I got out of it early on. Because I feel like the first episode is almost like that isekai slime / spider so what type of situation, where the beginning of it's just like, oh, he figures out how to be OP with his skills, and he's making stuff, and he doesn't want to be bothered by anybody else, and he's a loner, yay. And it really kind of is playing into the tropes. Like it was really playing into those tropes. I feel like most of all, this is a series that's not a parody. It parodies a lot of isekai, but it's not like it is a parody of isekais. It's trying to do other things. And I think a lot of that has to do with just him traveling with all the waifus. Really, it's like all the girls of his classroom, they're all surrounding him, and all the guys are doing their own things. For some reason, the delinquents are obsessed with trying to get the girls. Like they're in this other world. Monsters are going to kill them, and their sole Their sole focus is to level up so they can do naughty things with the classmates. It's like
there's no other females in this new world.
It's like agency whatsoever. Like, these guys have no driving force, but I have to find the girls from my previous world so I can charm them and bang or do whatever they want with them. I don't know. It's like every time it cuts to delinquents, it's constantly can't wait to get that one girl from class. Go do something. Like, go do again. Yeah, technically they just ran into some other people, and I guess they're in a forest where they don't even know if there is civilization in that world. But yeah, that's like the biggest annoyance that I have so far this series. And like I said, the first episode was kind of a shrug, but I think once he started kind of running into the other girls, or even the nerds, it's like finally things are kind of getting better. Like, suddenly there's chemistry, there's some goofiness happening, and I'm kind of curious to see what happens going forward. I think Haruka's a decent dude. He's not completely oblivious main character where, like, he doesn't get, like, certain comments. Like the nudist girl. Like, he comes in with the juice and he goes, hey, anybody want to buy some juice? And the class rep's like, why are you selling it to your classmates? Give it to them. And he's like, oh, man. And then suddenly the nudist girl, she shows up and she's just like, oh, I don't have any money, but will you take something else? And then he's like, yeah, I'll spice it up. So he's like, he doesn't, like, go after things, but at the same time, he's not, like, shy about it, which is kind of nice. But obviously class rep always has to be there to ruin it. But no, I do like the interaction with the other characters and the crazy stuff that can kind of pop up with, like, the subjugating and, you know, all the other interactions that he has with the other characters. So that's been kind of making it really work out well for me. I do kind of question what the overall story could be. I don't feel a goal. That's really the thing. It almost, like, has that feeling of almost a kind of like the chili sekai type of stories where it's not really about a focus, like kill the demon lord. Like, I'm curious why Haruka hasn't asked them, what did the old man tell you that we were doing here? Like, he just doesn't care to ask them, hey, why are we here? Like, are we supposed to be doing something here? He just doesn't bring it up. I guess that's to the fact that he just doesn't want to bother with anything, and he's kind of enjoying his time, I guess. But I'd be curious what the overall plot line is. It is the lack of a plot point because it was why the delinquents are obsessed with getting with the girls and hunting them down. The visuals don't really bother me too much. At least the character designs are good.
I'm
but
surprised.
I do agree that
I'm very surprised.
I'm not going to say it's a great looking show, but it's better than I thought it would be, I guess. Maybe because my expectations for it was so low to begin with.
Maybe.
That's probably what it was, because I think based on the PVs, it didn't look that fantastic. But I'm curious what they're doing with the... I'm trying to figure out why there's so many skills that have to do with control. That's another thing. Like, the delinquents have two, which was charm and something else. I almost thought that class rep was going to have one too.
Yeah, I thought he had something having to do with being a tamer or something like that.
Yeah, he's got subjugate. There's charm. There was something else they sealed. And then class rep, she had one that was... it sounded like it was a control ability, but it ended up being a stealing ability, basically. So everybody's kind of afraid of her. And it's like, but it's class rep, so it's okay. Like, they get into this whole thing of, like, be careful. There was this one other one that's really dangerous. And he's like, oh, all right. And I'm like, yeah, it's going to be the class rep. And then sure enough, it's class rep. And it's like, okay, that was a weird kind of random shock thing. Like, nobody knew that was coming from a mile away, that she actually has this incredibly dangerous ability that she would never use because she's class rep. They could use it in the future. It sort of implies that it requires the person to die, and she steals the skill. I think it implies that she has to actually do the killing blow. So it could turn one of those things where maybe it does actually get dark, where maybe that's why they're trying to make the delinquents out to be so obsessed with this one thing, which is to do harm to the girls, that maybe they're possibly going to go the direction that they might actually get serious and have them actually attack one of the girls and she has to do something and steals it. I don't think it'll get that dark. I mean, nothing shows this show would get that dark. It just feels too fluffy. It feels too fluffy.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It could. It's just one of those things where it's like, why bring it up if it's not going to get used? Why would it put so much emphasis? I would understand if they had that feeling that somebody had it for a long time, just to give you that sense that there is a danger there. Like, who has it? Like, who's the mole situation? But they revealed it so fast. It's like, okay, well, I guess that was a nothing. I guess that's not going to be a thing. But I don't know. Maybe she did it in order to keep everybody else safe. Like she knew that it could be possibly something dangerous because it requires death. So we'll see. We'll see. But I'm enjoying it. It's been fun. It's a lot more enjoyable than I thought it would be. I mean, it ended up in my top 10 favorites so far this season. So that tells you something. Or I could just tell you that there's a lot of very middle of the road shows this season. I will admit that this season overall, it's like there's like a handful of shows that are super good, and then everything else is kind of like, we'll see if this turns out good. This is kind of one of them. So, well, it's above the cut. It's above the cut. It's in like a 6 or 7 area right now, like probably a 6, but I'm enjoying it. That's Loner Life. The Loner Life. What do we have next? I should have put my list at the very top so I can get to it quickly. How I attended an all-guy mixer. You weren't planning on watching that, were you? Because it's all guys. Why would Chris watch a show about guys?
Because you said that there's something interesting about that one.
Yeah, I told Chris at some point, like, this isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Like, when we watched the previews, I'm like, okay, this is going to be like a total Fujoshi show. Like a bunch of dudes, and they're all like hot, and they're hanging out at an all-guy mixer. And then I watched the first episode, and I'm like, oh, so they're actually girls. I don't know, maybe I missed that from the synopsis. I must have not been paying attention when we read that. But anyways, How I Attended an All-Guy Mixer. This one's streaming on High Dive, running for 12 episodes, being done by Ashi Productions. The source is a manga. The genres are comedy and romance. And this follows Tokiwa, Asagi, and Hagi. And they get invited, Tokiwa gets invited by a girl at his class to go to a mixer. And when they get there, they come to find out the room's full of guys. Like, this girl that invited him's not there. There's just a bunch of guys in there. And then he realizes that the girl that invited him is actually in the room. It's just that she, along with her friends, are all dressed up as guys. See, they actually work at, like, this hostess club. And so, or is it host club? They work at a host club where they all, as girls, dress up as charming guys. And yeah, of course, a lot of girls show up there in order to be swooned by these charming looking women. But yeah, it kind of turns that whole thing where they're kind of conflicted. Like, are these actually girls? Are they guys? They look really hot. This is kind of confusing. Got that little confusion thing kind of coming up there. And eventually, yes, as they go to the restroom, the main girl, so she ends up sending them a picture of herself when she's actually dressed up, in a nice dress or whatever. And they're like, holy crap, that's her. And so, yeah, it kind of piques his interest a little bit, but they start hanging out together. Come to find out, like, the most popular guy in the school, like the prince of the school, is the girl that invited him. And so that turns into this whole jealousy thing, because now she dressed up as a prince, hanging out with him in school, is starting to make all the girls jealous. And they're all getting fantasies about, two guys together, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it just kind of goes from there to each one of them kind of spending time together. Fuji, one of the girls, Fuji, she is actually a mangaka, and she, yes, draws Fujoshi stuff, a lot of BL top-bottom stuff. So when she's with her pairing, which is Asagi, Asagi's very, like, puppy dog boy. Like, he's just kind of he's very airheaded. So he doesn't quite get the signals of what's going on in the situation. And so he just kind of plays into it very juvenile and very kind of innocently. And so she completely takes advantage of that. Kohaku, the third girl, she's like she seems very closed off emotionally, but very tomboyish, very emotionless, tomboyish. And they get into her for a little bit because the other guy is like feeling like he's the only one not getting any interaction with his girl. And so it turns this whole thing where they go to the host club they actually work at, and Kohaku is actually playing the role as like a massive what's the term that they were using for it? Very rude, very mean kind of attitude, I guess. Looking down at him like he's dirt kind of like thing. So that's basically the gist of it so far. Like I was saying before, when I was kind of recommending it to Chris, wasn't really recommending it to Chris, but it was one more of the things of like clarifying to him that wasn't the case, that this is like a decent show. I'm enjoying it more than I thought I would, but at the same time, I'm not really sure that I'll continue watching it, just because while I do get a good laugh here or there, and I think the writing is very spot on, the same time, it's not giving me enough outside of that. It's a solid series, though. It is technically playing a lot on... Early on, I felt like it was just going to be sort of just a play off of those jokes. The questioning if it's really a guy or a girl, getting into Fujoshi jokes, getting into BL jokes, which it does do quite a bit of that. I think that's really the flavor that it's going for. That's the punchline it's really kind of searching for. But I feel like it is at least doing a little bit more outside of that about their relationships, and they're connecting as you know, the different pairings that they have, like Hagi feeling like Kohaku isn't really spending much time with him while the other two guys are having plenty of time with their girl. And then him eventually kind of running into her and having this little brief moment of him finally feeling doki doki for her, despite the fact that she's always kind of keeping closed off. It's doing enough outside of the humor that I kind of want to keep watching. I'm very mixed at this moment. I'm mixed in this moment if it's going to be something I want to continue on. It's just... something about it's not really grabbing me. Like, it's one of those shows where when I'm watching, it's fine. It's fine when I'm watching it, but I never feel like I just cannot wait till the next episode. Like, it's just one of those shows where over time I realize, you know, I don't really care about seeking that one out. Of the list of all the shows to check out, it's not really calling to me. It's fine though. I think it's a fine show in the end, so we'll see though. I might check out more of it, but we'll see. That's All Guy Mixer. How I ended up at an All Guy Mixer. Next, Demon Lord Retry R. I don't really think there's much to really talk about here, and there's a reason for that. But I guess I can clarify something, because I think when we first heard about Demon Lord Retry R coming out, the massive question mark we had was how? Like, how is this going to work out? Because from what I understood early on, Demon Lord Retry, which was an anime adaptation... was this like 5 years ago at this point now? It was a while back there, it feels like. We enjoyed it. I think you enjoyed it too. Mm-hmm. I thought it was a really solid series. I mean, yes, Kendra Suda, it's obviously going to make it really more enjoyable for me. The knockoff Rem that they had his side the whole time. The Saints. I love the Saints so much. They were so friggin' fun. All that stuff was great. And it was this idea of this guy that was isekai into this world, and he was a game developer, and he got isekai into this world, and he was able to access his administration controls, and so he was able to pull in like these other characters that his friends had made and everything like that, and he was basically making a area in the
I thought
world.
they were his alts.
I want to say that they were actually created by his friends, which I get into a little bit into this one. But as he's kind of building this kind of area, he starts to make the area for the demi-humans, because the demi-humans are like, you know, being treated poorly and whatnot. And he ends up kind of making it to where like the kingdom will allow them and stop the subjugation of the demi-humans, all this kind of stuff. And eventually it kind of just cuts off at some point, because he's making like this massive hot springs and everything. And he was getting all this one lady involved that was really tied in with all the nobles. And he was making a massive corporation. The underplot story was that he was trying to figure out how to get out of there. And one of the things that he thought that he could is that he had this ring that he got from this statue, and he was hoping that possibly if he got enough power into it, possibly it could give him a wish to be able to get out of there or something like that. He kind of looks for artifacts too. It just kind of has a lot of little side plots. But when that first anime adaptation came out, that was an adaptation of the light novel. And when they announced Demon Lord Retry R was getting an adaptation, that's of the manga, which apparently was supposed to be ahead of where in the light novel the anime got to. So the question mark was, is this going to jump forward? Positive here, yes, it seems like it does give a massive recap, and that's sort of the negative I have right now with this series, because I think I've watched like 3 or 4 episodes at this point, and most all of it is recap. And it's not a good recap. Like, I'm trying to remember a lot of the story, and I remember all the characters. And so the moment, now granted, they look a lot different than the last adaptation, so there's some characters I don't really recognize, but then I recognize them. They're trying to recap everything over the first like 2 or 3 episodes, and they're doing it in a poor way that it's to that area where I'm like, I almost feel like I don't know why I'm watching this, because I'm just getting refed a lot of stuff that I've already seen, but I don't really think it's giving me a full concept of it. So it is one of those series where I don't know that you could jump into this series without watching the first season. I would recommend just watching the first season if you want to get invested in the series, because it's doing a poor job of actually telling the story. It is giving more context to the pre-life, though. There's a lot of storytelling that I don't recall there being in the first anime adaptation about his life outside of the game. It goes through this whole long process about how he spent like these 10 years working on this game, and these companies were willing to buy it and turn it into a massively multiplayer game. A lot of his visits with one of his friends that he kind of lived with for a while, visiting with the companies that wanted to buy the game concept from him. He didn't want to sell it until eventually he passes out and jumps into the game. So it gets into a lot more pre-game than I recall being in the first show, because I don't recall them really ever touching any of that stuff. So that's sort of still a positive if you are invested into it.
The only thing that they really kind of actually discussed was that the game was this kind of post-apocalyptic kind of cyberpunk-ish type world.
Yeah, and this world that he's in now, he knows full well it's not the world he made, because it's very fantasy. And he's supposed to be like the demon lord in that one, and for some reason he still has his admin controls here. It's still, I don't think it's ever really gotten to a point where it's gotten any sort of answers as to what the connection is. My assumption now, watching Dream World Retry R and this whole segment with him outside the world, is that that's probably the world that this other company wanted to get him involved with. So he's probably being thrown in that world. But
not post-apocalyptic, dystopian.
Yeah, it was like cyberpunk. It wasn't really.
It was a cyberpunk dystopia type place.
Yeah. But yeah, like overall, the show looks like butt. Like if Chris is offended by Loner Life, he's going to be super offended by how this show looks. Of course, the first adaptation wasn't that great looking. This looks like butt. This looks like absolute butt. I mean, there's a few points in it, like getting with Yukikaze, which I still get a kick out of Yukikaze even to this point. Just this thirsty mage. It was so funny because there's like this little segment where he's going out with Yukikaze and Mikan. If you remember, they were that was the mage and the warrior adventurers that he kind of hanged out with for a little bit there. And the mage was super thirsty for the demon lord, constantly like on his side all the time. And there's this little segment where he's traveling with him, Yukikaze and Mikan, and Yukikaze falls asleep on his lap, got his head laying there, and then after a while, suddenly Yukikaze wakes up and says, "Oh, Mao-sama, your legs are so hard," and then he just takes this like ice popsicle thing and just shoves it in his mouth, and it's like so. The shot is just so like, just. The positioning, everything just so wrong. And then it cuts, and later on they go to this dungeon because he wants to go in the dungeon to see if he can find some artifacts in there, and everybody's at this entrance and they're all like panicking over this really powerful mob that shouldn't be there. But Yukikaze summons this big sled and is like, put your hard thing inside of this thing or something like that. Then suddenly he just shoves the popsicle in his mouth again. And then so I clipped those two segments and I posted online on Twitter. I was like, Yukikaze, this girl is still as thirsty as ever, something like that. And then there's like all these people that reply into it going, actually, does he know? Oh my gosh, that's not a girl. And I'm like, you guys, that's the joke. That's the joke. And I like joked because Web Gaming like replied to one of them saying just let the guy dream or something like that, and I replied to him saying, you must be new here, with like the emote from like the Charlie and Chocolate Factory, and he's like, yeah, sure. And I'm like, again, that's the joke. You guys are pointing out the joke. Stop pointing out the joke. That's what's funny about it, is people go, the idea of the joke is that people go, oh my gosh, this Yukikaze person's like super thirsty and he's shoving a popsicle in her mouth. Oh my gosh, I want to check out the show. What's the show? And they go watch it and they suddenly find out. That's the joke. Now the joke has been dissected and is dead. It's like the frog that is the joke that you dissect it and it's dead.
If you have to explain the joke, this joke died.
Yeah, so if you have to dissect the frog's dead. You know what's inside the frog, but now it's dead. Anyways, yeah, that's it's about the only funny thing about the entire season so far. I mean, they met this one queen, and I don't recall her being the first one. I got into one of the past friends of one of the saints, and that was kind of a little bit convenient. So whatever that turns out to be, who knows? But I don't know. It feels. I think my problem with this season so far is that I feel like it's so all over the place that I don't know that I'll enjoy this season. I'm probably going to finish it just because I'm kind of invested at this point, but at the same time, I have a sense that I don't really feel it has a good plot point that's going to keep my interest. Like, from Mao's side, he ends up summoning yet another one of the
Well, if I
other
remember right,
characters.
I liked it more because of his interactions with the other characters, not so much because it had some kind of weird grand story. If I remember right, the story itself kind of sucked.
Yeah, I got a kick out of his interactions with the Saints. The Saints were so much freaking fun. Like the one that's obsessed with his other alter skill persona, which was Zero, and how she's super madly in love with Zero, but yet she doesn't like this demon lord, and that she doesn't know they're the same person. Yeah, his interactions with the other characters are super fun. I will agree with that. And that makes to the point there is like this whole segment with him with Mikan and Yukikaze, and then now his interaction with yet another one of the characters that he's summoned to this world, which is like a super Genki character that is like, she's like, oh, so you're the demon lord, so should I become the hero? And it's like, no, you're gonna turn on me. It's like a stupid little interaction with this super Genki character that's, yeah, compared to the other two characters that he's summoned so far, which is Kirino, which is the doctor that, yeah, likes to dissect people like crazy, and then Tahara, which is like this super genius assassin dude that thinks that he's like the greatest person ever. She's very different. She's very different. It's like this bubbly schoolgirl. I don't know. We'll see. It's very up in the air. At the same time, it's almost one of those series where I don't even go out of my way to suggest to anybody at this point. I mean, if you watched the first season, you enjoyed it, you're probably going to want to continue it on, but it is one of those ones where it's hard to suggest to anybody to jump right into this one, even with how it's doing its recapping.
I mean, I'm going to probably end up watching it. It's just lower on my priority list.
I got to watch it for Kendra Suda. Mm-hmm. And Yukikaze. Because apparently he's a girl.
He popped up in ReZero.
Kendra Suda?
Mm-hmm. I'll say daddy.
Huh?
I'll say daddy.
I'll say daddy?
I will say daddy.
Oh. Yeah, probably. I don't remember. The Most Notorious Talker. You said you watched that one, right?
Yes.
The Notorious
weird
Talker.
One.
So edgy, Chris.
I know.
It's so edgy, Chris.
It's just weird.
Is it weird? I don't know.
It's
that
just
I call it
weird.
You'll have to explain why it's weird after I do a quick run through. The Most Notorious Talker runs the world's greatest clan, or Saikyo no Shinshoku Wajutsushi de Aru Ore wa Sekai Saikyo clan wo Shita Gairu, I guess. Being done by Felix Film and GA Crew. It's based on a light novel. Action, adventure, comedy, fantasy, psychological. Apparently it's funny. I guess the whole interaction with Alma is kind of funny, so that's fine. Anyways, this one opens up with Noel Stolen, and his grandfather is like the most freaking awesomest. What do they call him?
Seekers.
Thank you. Was like a really, really powerful seeker, super strong, took out things. Well, unfortunately, even though Noel looked up to him so much, and he's like, I can't wait to become a seeker myself, he comes to find out that he is a type of skilled, and they're called talkers, which is they're buffers, basically. He's never going to become like somebody that is super strong that beats up things because he's the buffer in the party. He's not the fighter in the party. And so this kind of bothers him, but his grandfather's like, don't worry, I'm going to train you up to be super strong, and you're going to be able to overcome everything.
The greatest seeker ever, even though you're a talker.
Yeah, even though you're a talker. And so, yeah, they do that. So jump forward in time. Now he's with a party, and they're all doing, adventures together. He's doing his buffing them up. They're fighting the front lines. Eventually it comes to this point where one of the guys is kind of insulting him because he's just a buffer, and yet he has to command. The whole trick here, though, is not just their buffers, and I do think this is kind of creative. The talker, what they do is they bestow buffs upon the party members, like increasing their stamina, their strength, or whatever. But they have to command them in order for them to utilize it. So there is an element where they have to be the leader and sort of tell them where to go while they buff them. Otherwise, they don't get the benefits from it. Is it kind of how I felt that it was explained?
It's not. He's better at it than most. Is I think really kind of the way that they're implying it.
But he has
almost
to command them, though.
because yes, and if he commands them, then they will get the maximum benefits out of the buff.
Right.
Whereas the way that they were implying it is most talkers don't really pull that off.
Yeah,
they're
so
not
like,
good at it.
They're in these dungeons, and he's basically commanding them to do stuff, and they're giving the buffs, and they're able to just destroy stuff. They even have like this whole sense of like when they don't have their buffs, suddenly realize, holy crap, this stuff is like really hard to fight, and then he gives the buffs, and suddenly they're able to do it. So, anyways, get back to the town. There comes up a discussion because Noel, obviously, his goal is to become one of the greatest seekers ever, and in order to get the jobs to become something great, you got to be part of a clan. And as just an independent party, you get the scraps, stuff that doesn't pay much, not much recognition. So his goal is to eventually have them make a clan. So he comes forward to his party members and says, hey guys, how much have we got saved up so far? Oh yeah, we got like, 13 something or 14 million or something like that. And he's like, well, I have another 7. Let's make a clan. It takes like 20 to actually buy a clan or pay to make a clan. So they got all the money ready for it, and he's going to fork up 7 of it. You might as well go with it. But then there's like this bunch of question marks that are coming up like, hey, we're not that strong. I mean, we're going to probably get rolled, or they're not going to take us seriously. We're going to waste that money. Hey, I don't think we can do this. It takes a lot of effort to run a clan, and all this kind of stuff comes up. But eventually he convinces everybody. Basically tells them, I want my cut, and I'm going to go make my own clan or go find another group if you're not going to do it, because I want to become a clan. I want to become the greatest seeker. Eventually they agree. Let's talk about tomorrow. Biggest shock to nobody. Oh, the leader disappeared with all the money and the girl. Nobody's seen that coming, right? Yeah, one of the other members comes.
Obviously, Noel didn't.
I was waiting for him to say I knew that was coming. He sort of implied that he knew it was coming. Or he wasn't shocked by it. Is really what he was saying. He's not that he said that he knew it was coming. He just wasn't shocked by it. But yeah, anyways. They end up like hiring a bunch of other people to try to hunt them down. They end up finding them, and then at that point, Noel gets them to confess. He even uses one of his abilities to make the girl confess that she was gambling off the money too. So she gets her derpy face going. You have to have every one of the characters have to have the derpy faces so they don't know they're super evil. That you're okay with Noel being mean to them. Eventually, he sells them off to a forced servitude trader person and got the money that way so that he can make his clan. And now he's starting to recruit. Ends up meeting this girl named Alma, who her grandfather fought his grandfather. She's part of this like assassin clan, and yeah, he had lost his arm to Noel's grandfather. So it's his grandfather, right? Not father.
I think it was his grandfather.
Yeah, I want to say it's grandfather. But yeah, so you have like this whole like their grandfathers fought at some point, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry about that. And he's dead already, so it doesn't matter.
No, they were fathers.
Okay, there you go.
Because I want to say that she, yeah.
Because I know somebody's going to be in the comments going, actually, it's father. But anyways, yes, he's like, she ends up having some dude that was heckling her, and she beats him up, and he's like, I want you to join the clan. And so now they're traveling together and doing jobs as a 2-man clan so far. That's basically what I've watched so far. Sure. Why is this show weird? You said it was weird earlier. What? Explain yourself.
I actually like it a lot more than I want to admit to. I don't know why. I really don't get it. It's this kind of weird mix of, I love these weird systems that they're getting into that I kind of like. I'm not sure if I don't much care for Noel.
Yeah,
but they did. I can kind of see why they're kind of making him into the like Andrew said, the edgiest edge boy in the world. He sold his friends off into slavery, and he's best friends with
forced servitude. Chris,
I'm sorry. But yeah, it's weird. For whatever reason, it's kind of just working. I really want to see where they. I really like Alma. She's just freaking awesome. I love it.
You know what her and not so much Noel, but like this, the pairing of the two of them remind me of that Berserk Gluttony. Because didn't he have like that one tan girl that he was always hanging out with for a while there that was always hungry?
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of them too for some reason.
I can kind of see that.
Noel's like super edge boy though. Like he's about the edgiest that you can get edge. So how long do you think until Noel shows back up? how long do you think until his the girl and the boy that he sold off show up again? I want Walter to come back in though. I did like Walter.
I do think Walter will come back.
He's gotta.
As far as the other two,
Basically, one of the only other party member that didn't betray him, he didn't join the clan. He decided to go on his own, go back to his hometown. He's like, I'm not cut out for this, and it's like, what? Like he's that traumatized by the whole situation. Okay, we'll see you later, I guess.
as far as the other two, Leon probably goes the dark route, and Tanya probably.
I don't know. Gotta see her derp face again. I love how they have.
No, I think faces. That she'll. I think that she'll go the complete. As much as I hate to say it this way, destroyed character, super masochist type thing.
Mind broken.
Yeah.
Mind broken. She was behind it all the time. It was all of her, according to her keikaku. I don't know. The first episode was just woof. Like it was extremely predictable. Like from the get-go when they showed, I'm like, okay, is this going to be a ban from the hero party, or is it going to be betrayed by the party kind of situation? So yeah, like I said, the whole like mid conversation about the making the clan, I was already like, he's not going to be with these characters going forward because they looked a little bit too generic. Like Leon and Tanya, and especially Walter, they all looked way too generic. I'm like, this is not going to be his party. He's going to ditch these guys here soon. They don't look unique enough. And so by the halfway through that conversation about making the clan, I'm like, yeah, Leon's doesn't have the money. He obviously doesn't have the money. And now the question mark is going to be, did he sell it or whatever? And then like Tanya's like there's like this look, like the way that Tanya and Leon are kind of looking at each other. I'm like, yeah, they're totally in cahoots. All right. Yeah, they betrayed everybody. Big shocker there. So yeah, it played out very predictable for that first episode. And then, yeah, just not that Noel's not like, he's justified. Like the way that that whole scenario ends with him doing all that, it's justified, especially in a setting like that. If you have a massive debt to somebody, it typically means that you own them. And yes, that often meant that you were going to be sold off to human trade. That's how things like that happened back in those days. And not that this is like a set our history or anything like that. It's just the setting of like medieval times type of setting. So yeah, that I was justified, but at the same time, it doesn't make him likable. Like the entire first episode, and I've yet to have a moment where I'm like, I find him likable. He's not a likable character. Mm-hmm. Not that main characters always have to be likable, but there has to be something else to offset it to make it entertaining. Having the focus and center focus of a series be a character that's unlikable, you have to give me something. And just, he's unbearable in a lot of cases. Like he's not entertaining. He's not likable. He's not funny. He's not something. Give me something. The only thing that kind of saved a little bit was getting into, Alma showing up, and she doesn't really have like a very boisterous attitude or entertaining herself, but at least she's hot.
Yeah.
So at least
she looks damn good.
She looks damn good. I'm sorry. What am I going to say? Don't judge me. I don't care. Judge me. I don't care. She's hot.
And she's had a chromia, so that just double shot for Andrew.
Good point. Very good point. But there was like this whole like side group, Wolf and all them, and they were like wanting to join. I'm like, at least they look kind of fun. You got the cute girl with Wolf. I'm like, let's start following that party. I don't know. Like, I do find the talker aspect to be interesting.
Yeah.
I do think it's a very unique way of doing it. Like I said, not just being... I've always liked the concept of having a series that has buffers, and it's really odd that series don't play off that well enough. And to have the main character be the buffer, it's interesting. But I don't like the idea of presenting something unique like that, where he is buffing somebody else to be the lead and the fighter, but then quickly turn it into he doesn't need help anyways. Like, why present this idea that he needs to buff people and that his whole role is to be a buffer, and yet he doesn't necessarily need to buff anybody, because he does say that he can't buff himself, but then he's like
he's incredibly powerful himself, so I thought that he was actually buffing himself. Or he can't give the boosted buff. I just remember one line jumped out at some point. I forgot.
He has some techniques to do stuff, but I don't think that. I think you're right. I don't think he can buff himself.
And yeah, he's got like guns and stuff like that. So it's like I don't really think that he needs much health. I mean, it's like the whole healer show this season too. Is just like that whole thing of like, stop setting them up as they are supporters and they're not supporters. Why do series have to have I'm a supporter but I'm not really a supporter character? Just make them a supporter character. Why can we not have it just be a supporter character? It's wasted opportunity there, but I guess he wouldn't be cool if he was a weak backliner.
Well, I think that this is what this will, if it anything that it can really kind of pull off is he can be a self-insert that is effectively the one that if you were playing a game and you were sitting there telling your characters, do this, do this, do this, do this. I mean, it can actually pull that off to an extent. It's a cool concept either way.
Yeah, it was like, was it Parallel World at Rhapsody, basically, that concept where he had all the girls that he was buying and they were his fighters? Or did he get in the fray too? I know Harriman Labyrinth will know the world but he kind of was getting stronger too himself. Yeah. Like it's so interesting, like I said, that they always kind of
Parallel World Rhapsody?
Yeah.
I don't think
Death
I've seen
March.
that one.
Death March Parallel World Rhapsody?
Gotcha.
Because didn't he buy a bunch of girls and he went down the dungeon and they were fighting for him?
I'll have to get back at that one and look it up. I seem to remember it, but
because he had that one girl that he was in the bed with in like the second episode. I don't know if I ever finished that one. Honestly, I don't remember. Anyways, that's the most notorious talker. Runs the world's greatest clan. It looks visually okay. It's kind of in the same vein as the Loner Life. It's kind of like sometimes it just doesn't look great, but other times it looks all right. So there you go. There you go. Let's move on to Dandadan. Dandadan. You said you watched that one, right?
No.
You didn't? Not planning on, though.
Probably not.
Man. Chris missing out on peak, people. Y'all start shaming him in the chats and everything. This one's streaming on pretty much every platform, I think. It's running for 12 episodes. Done by Science Saru. The sources of manga. The genres are action, comedy, drama, fantasy, sci-fi, supernatural. And this one opens up with... initially, it opens up with Ayase. And Ayase is just breaking up with her boyfriend. He's kind of a rough dude. Kind of like a... He almost feels like a... Yakuza kind of like rough dude. But he likes that. She likes it. But she likes that because her like love of all life... The one that she loves and cherishes the most is this actor named Ken Takakura. And he's like this very buff Japanese actor. And so she's always like romanticized him. She's got posters all over her room of him. And so she's looking for a tough guy. And this guy was kind of reminded her of him. So she was kind of putting up with a lot of crap. At some point, he just kind of gets fed up with her and says, hey, if you're not going to put out and you're not going to give me money, I'm going to break up with you. And then they get in a little bit of a fight. And then as she's kind of a little pouting for a little bit, she ends up walking down the hallway and she ends up running into, at the time, she calls him Nerd, but his name ends up being Ken Takakura, which is a joke later on. But she runs into this boy that's being bullied and she decides to step in there, sit down next to him in his class as they're trying to throw stuff at him. And they decide to stop bullying him. She like gets up after that, a little fed up, goes out the door, continues down the hallway. And then he runs up behind her and says, you're in love, aren't you? And she's like, what are you talking about? You're into the occult stuff, right? And she's like, what are you talking about? I have this book right here. You're into this stuff, right? And UFOs and stuff like that. She's like, no, that stuff doesn't exist. You're an idiot. He's like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, UFOs don't exist. Ends up finding out that her grandmother is actually like a spirit medium. And so she only believes in spirits and ghosts. And he's like, what are you talking about? Spirits and ghosts don't exist. So they get in this little argument back and forth whether, if UFOs exist or if spirits exist, and how one side or the other has never been proven and there's evidence against it and all that kind of crap. Until eventually they both challenge each other basically at that point. The boy, he has her, Ayase, go to this one abandoned hospital where there was a UFO sighting. And she has him go to this tunnel out in the middle of nowhere, where it's like a spirit hotspot. And there's like this this spirit that's in there that's been spotted. So they both go there, and eventually the boy ends up running into what they call later on Turbo Granny. And Turbo Granny is this spirit, this yokai, that thinks it's the fastest thing ever. And so it'll chase people. And if it catches you, bad things happen. And so immediately when he spots it, he freaks out, starts running. At the same time, on the other side of the phone, Ayase is over here in the hospital, and she ends up running into these like 4 or 5 weird looking dudes that end up being aliens, or they call themselves Serpos. And she gets captured. So cut over to Ayase being basically tied down with all these aliens. They're talking about probing her. They want to implant into her a baby, because they're a race of all male aliens. And so they want to, put a bun in the oven, at the same time take her uterus and her banana. They have to take her banana too. And then suddenly out of her phone nearby pops out this boy, now as like half formed into Turbo Granny, and starts biting the aliens' groins, taking their bananas. And it starts tearing things up. Suddenly he gets his butt kicked, and Ayase awakens to her spirit powers from her family, so she can now control chi and starts to throw things around and drop kicks things. And
you're not convincing me this is not footy
it's
cootie.
so freaking great. It's not footy cootie. It's so freaking great. After the dust settles and the spaceship is trying to flee and it crashes and everything, eventually the Turbo Granny appears and says, "I have taken the boy's wiener, and if you want the wiener back, you got to come to the tunnel and come get it." And that's the big setup there, is you basically have Ayase's feeling a little bad that this boy's lost his wiener because she challenged him to this test. At the same time, the boy is a little bit upset that he got her involved in it as well. But it all kind of culminates to this idea that he's got to get his wiener back, because his wiener is literally gone. We find out later on his wiener is legit gone. At the same time, he's possessed by this Turbo Granny, so that whenever Ayase is not holding his spirit back, or her spirit back, he will transform into Turbo Granny and start attacking Ayase or anybody else. So she's got to constantly keep him in check. They go back to her home to seek help from her grandma, who's a spirit medium. She ends up kind of explaining the whole situation about how, this Turbo Granny, it's not just a yokai in that tunnel. There's the concept of location-bound spirits, which are spirits that when they're in a location that they are bound to, they become extremely powerful. And this Turbo Granny, which was a yokai at some point in the past, this yokai merged with the spirit-bound, the location-bound spirit. So it's extremely powerful. She's actually, her grandma has actually gone there before, and the thing was so powerful, she didn't even go in the tunnel. She's like, I would die if I go in there. Because the grandma gets her power from her location from the gods, and this is outside of that zone, and plus it's just really powerful. Anyways, so yeah, that's basically the setup so far, is Ayase teamed up with what she calls him Okuron, by the way. She calls the boy Okuron. His actual name is, like I said, Ken Takakura, and she forbids him from calling himself that because, as we find out later on, when there was this whole segment where the boy Okuron really badly had to go to the bathroom, and so he goes to go into their house to go to the bathroom because he's like, I can't hold it anymore, and Ayase does not want him to use their bathroom because you don't use another person's bathroom. He's got to do a number 2, and she doesn't want him stinking up their bathroom. And so she starts chasing him down, and suddenly out of nowhere, the grandma's like, "Let me join in." She just wants to join in this whole chasing, and they're running down the hallway, and the grandma's like, out of nowhere is like, "Ken Takakura, you're more amazing than I thought you would be." And then Ayase, hearing this, she just goes squee, and it just falls over. Just like merely hearing the name Ken Takakura gets her all doki doki. It's just so goofy. Anyways, let me talk about the show. I love this show. I'm loving it a lot more than I thought I would. Obviously, from the PVs, I assumed it was going to look good. I'm always mixed on Science Daughter stuff. Half the stuff I don't like how it looks. Half the time I don't like the animation, how they use different styles. And there's other times where I really love their style, like Hike Story, freaking phenomenal series, love it to death. So when I came into this, I'm like, okay, at least the PVs look really good. I think they can actually pull this off. And based on the fact that the manga that I skimmed beforehand being very kind of crude, I was hoping and assuming that Science Saru could do it justice. Like, yes, having her tied down by all these aliens, and they're talking about how they can't procreate without females. They don't have females in their race, and they need to procreate and take her banana, which implies to me that they think even females have bananas, or maybe because they're all males, they just assume females have bananas too. And then it gets into later on, like this other alien shows up and they think it's a spirit, but it's actually an alien. And they might be similar in some way. And that thing wants a banana. It's like everything wants bananas, and I don't know what the banana is. It's just super crude and kind of inappropriate, but it's not holding any of it back. Like it just happens. And I like that. I like how it's unfiltered and it's unashamed about just being kind of crude at times. And I love it. But I know, anyways, the first episode, bonkers. Loved it. It's just nonstop fun, laughs here and there. There's a little bit of a sprinkle of like some heart in there, and the idea of like Ayase and why she believes in spirits and how much she protects family. Like she really respects family and will do anything that she can to protect family. And that's all in the fact that her grandmother took her in when she had nobody else, and just her mistakes she made with her grandma, because she used to hate her grandma because her grandma made her do rituals when she went to school and she got bullied because of it. I love all that segment there as well, getting into their characters and why they believe in what they believe in. From Okuron's side, he believes in aliens because he's never had friends. His entire life, he's just never had friends, and when he read about aliens, he figured, well, if I can figure out how to contact aliens, maybe the aliens will be my friend. And so now that he has Ayase here that's trying to help him, suddenly he's got somebody that he wants to protect, somebody that he doesn't want to lose. So really good little connection there. What sold me on the series? Chemistry. I think this writer is so good at chemistry. Like, these characters are so freaking fun together. It's not even funny. Like, and heartfelt too. Like, just how like dysfunctional they are in combat, how badass Ayase is in combat, how they're just kind of winging it, trying to figure out their powers and figure out how they can work it together. Like, the second fight was really interesting because Ayase the entire time, in order to keep him from becoming overcome by the Turbo Granny, is she has to constantly keep her hand on his aura. Like, she says that she can see his aura, and it's almost like she's trying to imagine that she's crushing it. And so she constantly has to keep her hand out there to keep that aura crushed down. And if she ever looks away and ever takes her hand off of him, he's suddenly going to turn into it, and he's going to be out of control. And so the entire time they're running from this big, massive sumo alien, and she's constantly has to keep her hand and keep an eye on him. She's constantly pulling him out of danger the entire time this thing's thrashing around. Like, she's too freaking cool. But it eventually turns into the Okuron wanting to help, and so he's like, well, can you somehow not hold back the rest of my body so they can transform, but keep it on my mind so that I can still keep my consciousness, but yet I can have the powers? And so they kind of experiment with that on the fly as they're fighting this thing, and it just turns into her basically saving his butt in the end. But it's just them kind of figuring it out as they go along that I do really like. But it's just like everything outside of the actual fight as well is just so well wrote. Like when they first come home, Okuron, they just go walking through this archway that go into the house, and immediately, or into the yard, and immediately Okuron gets set on fire because he got Turbo Granny in him, and they have this barrier set up. Obviously, the grandma has a barrier set up, and so he gets set on fire, and she just like chucks him into the water using her force powers. Gets thrown in the water, gets him set, the flames go away. She takes down the barrier, and then she's like, "Okay, try again," and he's like, he's just barely creeping in, and his head's torched, so he's got this whole fro thing going on, and he walks through the archways, save, and she's like over there going, save, and then she turns to him and goes, and she starts busting up laughing. He's like, what are you laughing at? You got this granny fro thing going on, and she's just laughing at them the whole time. They go inside the house, and she goes to go change, but then she closed the door on him so she can change, but then suddenly he immediately turns to Turbo Granny, busts open the door and says, I'm changing back, and she's like, what the hell, like, don't open the door when I'm trying to change. It's just so goofy between the two of them. And then it switches over to heartfelt as you get this little insight into Well, initially she's teasing him because he doesn't have a wiener. She's like, "You said you took your wiener. Does that mean you don't have a wiener? Let me see." "No, you can't see." And he looks down and he goes, "Oh, hell, it's actually gone." "Well, let me see it." "No, you can't see, but it's not there. What's the problem?" And then it like turns into this whole thing where they start to blame each other, but they both kind of accept the blame for the situation, which kind of ultimately turns into how they kind of support each other, is the fact that I think they both kind of blame each other for the whole situation. And it turns to kind of heartfelt for the minute there, because he said, the reason why I kept, she's like, "The only reason this happened is because you kept hounding me in the hallway. And then that's why I challenged you." And he said, "The reason why I kept hounding you is because I felt like I was going to miss a chance." "Well, what chance?" "I felt like I had a chance at a friend and I didn't want to miss it. So I got the courage to stand up, go to that hallway and chase you down because I thought I could have a friend." It's like, oh gosh, now it's like super sweet. And she's like, "Okay, well, let's talk like normal," or something like that. Then suddenly he says, "You're ugly." And they start yelling at each other. I'm like, I just love these two. They're so freaking fun. I love it because they're kind of mean to each other, but at the same time, they're both goofballs. I just love it. I think that, and then you add the grandma into it. She's great too. She's just way too freaking badass. I love it. I'm really loving it. Visually, it looks really good. Besides the sumo, the alien sumo was pretty obvious CGI. It wasn't bad CGI, but it was like, eh. That's a small dock, but the rest of it looks super good. So, like the fight between the Turbo Granny and Granny was super good. Just looks way too good. Like they have this whole segment where the grandma, when she first shows up, quickly puts her in a barrier, draws a barrier, puts down a stake, a warding stake, creates a barrier, so it can't leave this circle, and just starts going around the thing and just beating him with a bat. And the bat like also serves as a drawing, a pencil too, so she can open the top of the bat, and there's this massive pencil that comes out, and that's how she draws the circles. She's very much so a specialist in barriers. And this is one moment where like she's standing in front of Okuran as the Turbo Granny, and she's like telling her how she's gonna not seal her away, she's gonna destroy her. "Anybody that touches my granddaughter, I'm gonna kill." And then suddenly the Turbo Granny's like just staring her down, and she's almost got like, the grandma's looking down at the Turbo Granny, and then suddenly the Turbo Granny just like starts getting up higher and standing up straight and just starts looking down, and then slowly starts to kind of rub its face up against the barrier, so it starts setting it on fire. And it's like this whole kind of like intimidating look that I'm like, oh, that looks so good. Because it's so good. Really nailed that. So anyways, I think I've talked enough. I really like it. Really, really enjoying it. I didn't think I'd actually enjoy it as much as I am. I think it's turning out to be one of the best of the season right now. So I'm happy with how it's turning out. Super good. It's nice that a show that's like super hyped by everybody actually turns out to be good. I always like when a show is like super hyped by everybody, and I actually really enjoy it. It's not one of those cases where you kind of feel like you're sitting on the bench and everybody's having fun in the yard, and you're like, I don't get it. I wish I understood it. I don't get it. Anyway, that's Dandadan. I can go on, but I think I covered it well enough. It's good. It's good. It's good. Let's see. Acro Trip. You didn't watch Acro Trip, did you?
Yep.
You did?
That's the berry.
The berry blossom. Is it berry blossom? Yeah, it's berry blossom. Acro, as I call it, Gushing Over Magical Girl PG-13 edition. Good description of it.
There's characters that I don't know, so I must have missed an episode.
We haven't met any of these people. I just put them on the thing just so that they're on there. I think we've seen this person briefly, but they're not in the show yet, I don't think. I think we've seen him briefly too, but he's not in the show yet. He's the Kuma bear's in this show. You know the
Kuma Kaijins.
Yeah, you know the Kuma, right? Okay.
The Kuma Kaijin. Yeah, I gotcha.
Anyways, Acro Trip. This one is streaming on Crunchyroll for 12 episodes, done by Voil. Sources of manga, comedy, fantasy, mahou shoujo is the genres. But yeah, this one opens up with Date, Chizuko, and she is just going to be. She went off to spend some time with her grandfather at his hometown, just kind of get away from her hometown. And at some point, while she's kind of traveling around with the grandfather, cooking food for him and everything like that, it's establishing that she doesn't have anything that she's striving for. No passion in her. She's just kind of going about her days. Nothing, no hobbies or anything like that. Well, one day while she is walking home she's at the mall and she ends up running into a weird looking cat and then meets some girl there. And then while she's walking home from there, she ends up bumping into a magical girl fight. Turns out this town has a magical girl, and the bad guy shows up every now and then, attacks the town. The magical girl shows up and beats it, and she gets a front row seat to the whole situation, and she immediately falls in love with the magical girl, Berry Blossom. And suddenly she rushes home, tells grandfather, I found something that I love, calls up her mom on the phone. Mom, I found something I love. Can I stay here for a little bit longer? She's like, oh yeah, you found something you like? Yeah, for sure. Stay there. She's like, the mother's like super happy that her daughter's found something that she's happy about. But yeah, it just turns in from that point that Date is like super, super obsessed with this magical girl. Every now and then there's like video footage that's submitted to the news broadcast. And so they'll broadcast at the end of the day, showing the magical girl beat the villain of this area, which is Chroma. And it doesn't seem like the bad guy is doing very well. Like, nobody seems to care about this magical girl. Everybody's kind of just bored about her fighting this Chroma because Chroma's like a terrible villain that doesn't really do a good job. Even Date herself is like criticizing him, saying that he's like terrible, and which he overhears at some point. He kind of asks her, give me some ideas. He actually sits down and wants to recruit him. Like, I don't know where Chroma, this villain guy, just wants to recruit Date because she's criticizing him, and she realizes very quickly that Date is like him. He explains at some point, like, the first time he ever did an evil deed was flipping mats in front of a convenience store because he thought that would be super evil. And she caught him and beat him. And then he fell in love with her ever since then. So Chroma and Date both are kind of similar in the idea that, or at least from Chroma's perspective, that they both like not just the magical girl, Berry Blossom, they like seeing her struggle. Which goes to my joke that I was talking about with the whole gushing over magical girl idea. It's not just liking the magical girl. They like to see her struggle. They like to see her persevere from some sort of issue. Which sort of makes sense because the first time that Date seen Berry Blossom and the moment that she fell in love with her, she slipped up a bunch and caused a lot of havoc and was struggling to actually fight Chroma that one time. But no, Date obviously does not want to join Chroma. She likes Berry Blossom, never wants to harm Berry Blossom, so she keeps refusing him. Eventually, Chroma like gets her stuck in a closet in his base and tricks her into signing a contract in order to get out of the closet, and officially makes a contract to join the evil organization. They kidnap the mascot. That doesn't work out well because both of them pass out the moment they hear Berry Blossom over the phone when they're trying to call to demand a ransom. And yeah, that's basically the gist so far. There's a little bit of hint that at some point there was a robber that Berry Blossom stops in order to save Date, and they sort of imply the idea that the magical girls are not allowed to bring harm or use their powers against humans. They're only supposed to attack villains. So
yeah, there was something about magical girls or magic being in the magic side and police doing the physical stuff. And
yeah, she's like, the police don't like me. The police don't like me. I gotta get out of here. The police don't like me.
Well, considering one of her battles where she like takes out an entire bridge, and
that was the boof. That was the oof moment. That was her rare moment she struggled, and I think that's why Date liked her so much. And like implied later on that she completely flubbed that. That was all her. Like, she totally messed up that bridge. But it all made it out like it was like she didn't realize it was her doing, and so she thought Chroma was doing it. Like, it was like this one rare moment Chroma was actually kicking butt. But yeah. Anyways, what's your thoughts?
I love it. I do like the bumbling bad guys thing that they've got going on. I kind of like that Berry is not exactly overwhelming them. So it's almost like everything is starting from the ground up, and I think it's absolutely perfect for this. So I absolutely can't wait to see where they go from here as far as are they just slowly going to build up and actually get into a full grand thing, or if it's just going to stay in this local area and just constantly be just a bicker battle between whatever their bad guy for. I can't think of the name of their Corporation versus Berry Blossom, or if there's going to be more than one magical girl at some point. I think it could be a lot of fun for sure.
Yeah, at some point, it kind of turns into him finally getting, because it was like at some point Chrome gave up and quit.
Yeah.
Like she just sees the news like Chrome gave up, and he's like, oh, I guess there's no more battles happen, so I guess that's a good thing. And then really she realized later on, wait, that means that Berry Blossom is like, they cut to Berry Blossom's like footage again, which we find out that it's the mascot that submits the footage. They just cut back to, this is what Berry Blossom's doing, she's just picking up trash. Like she's just doing like community service now because there's no bad guy anymore. And so it's like Date is just so mad, and then it just turns into her literally forcing, like, becoming finally a general of his team and trying to essentially give him guidance in order to be able to fight Berry Blossom. And Berry Blossom just loves it in the end. But no, I'm super mixed on this series. Like, I will say, like, besides like a few points here or there with the first couple episodes, I wasn't really feeling it at all. Like, it just felt Date and Chroma, their chemistry's just not good in my opinion. Like, it was funny at first, but it just turns into Chroma being completely incompetent and Date pointing out how incompetent he is. And then every now and then Date pointing out some sinister thing that he could do, and he just goes, well, that's really sinister. And she's like, oh yeah, that's what you're supposed to be doing. Like, one time he just wakes her up and she's like, what are you doing here? I need an idea what to do. Why don't you just kidnap somebody and hold a ransom? Well, that's really sinister. Yeah? Like, that's supposed to be what you're doing? Not flipping mats in front of convenience stores? I just didn't find the two of them that funny. It wasn't until, like, the whole segment where Berry Blossom gets the note from one of the Kuma bears that Chroma left, which is that Chroma basically leaves a note, has the bears handing out this message from him stating to the magical girl, Berry Blossom, I am going to go to this local park and I'm going to sit on the swing. And if any kids ask me if they can use the swing, I'm going to tell them no. That was his challenge. And so the storm boils up and Date's like, I don't think Berry Blossom will show up. And then sure enough, Berry Blossom showed up because he might be on the swing and not letting the kids actually use the swing. It's so stupid. It is so stupid. It was like ever since that point, like having her at the house, Date's freaking out. She talking to the mascot. It turns into the whole like taking the mascot hostage. Them calling up the Berry Blossom to tell her that they have her mascot, captured. And literally Chroma is passing out from hearing Berry Blossom's voice. And then Date's like, I have to take the head. I have to reveal that I'm one of the generals. I have to follow through with this. She picks up the phone, hears Berry Blossom's voice, and she can't take it either. And so she just basically informs Berry Blossom. What did she say? I basically told her like I was a lost kids center. She just basically says, we have your Mashiro here. Please come pick her up. It's not really like a ransom. It was dorky. That was where it was kind of starting to work for me. But outside of that, it's just not. Like, unless they can have unless Berry Blossom's involved with it, it just doesn't work. But when Berry Blossom is actually involved, it's actually good. I don't like Date and Chroma alone. They just don't. There's not enough chemistry between the two of them. When Berry Blossom's involved, suddenly it's hilarious. If they can get her involved more, I'll enjoy it, but I don't know that that's really the focus that they're going for. I really don't. With how little Berry Blossom has been involved, I don't think that's their focus. But it's fine. Like I was joking about, and I kind of technically mean it. If you were one of the people that didn't like Gushing Over Magical Girls because of how lewd it was, this is literally sort of the same concept of the massive fan of the magical girl becoming the villain in order to put the magical girl through hardship. It's really what it is. I know it's a shocker to say this because Gushing Over Magical Girl had a few issues of its own with visuals. This show's not good looking. This show looks way worse. Voil is like a new studio, and they don't seem to have their act together because this show just looks half the time like butt. Like the whole fight at the ocean side was so bad. It was so bad. Like they have the magical girls out in this ocean side. This is like right when Date teams up with Chroma. Chroma returns back to being a villain. Berry Blossom's picking up trash on the ocean, on the shore, and then suddenly out of nowhere, Chroma rides up on the Kuma bears through the ocean. It looks so bad. It looks so bad. Yeah, not a visually good looking show. I don't know. We'll see. I think the thing that might actually help it out a little bit is it seems that I think it implies there's going to be some other villains that will show up. So maybe they'll spice things up. Maybe we'll have another magical girl. I'm assuming Coco might be another magical girl. Maybe it needs something else to kind of spice it up because, like I said, I don't think Chroma and Date alone is good enough. They're silly. It's just not enough. So, anything else on Acro Trip? Acro Trip. That's Acro Trip. What else? Blue Box. Let's get Blue Box out of the way. The romance of the season. Blue Box streaming on Netflix, running for 25 episodes, done by Telecom Animation Film, based on a manga, romance slice of life out of the genres. This one follows Taiki, and Taiki is going to this one school. It's like a junior high / high school combined school, and he goes to school every single morning to go train in his badminton, mainly because there's this girl that comes there very early to train as well, which her name is Chinatsu, his senpai. And apparently back in the day, at some point, she was doing some tryouts. She failed her tryouts, but he ended up spotting her continuing to practice despite the fact that she was in tears, trying to push herself and get better. And this kind of inspired him and also made him fall in love with her. So he's trying to become good in badminton as well. All the while, yes, going there early to spot his beloved senpai. Eventually, they start talking together. He ends up mentioning the idea that he was inspired by her, seeing how hard she was pushing. This actually turned out to be something that inspired her because, yeah, come to find out from his mom, as he's at home one day and he's talking to his mom and she's like, oh, yeah, I remember her mom and my mom, her mom and me used to be in a basketball team together. And it's kind of a shame that, yeah, they're moving away. And he's like, what the heck? They're moving away? That means that Chinatsu's transferring and leaving? So he rushes to school and says, no, I want you to keep trying. And she's like, oh, that's all right. I'm not moving anywhere. Apparently him mentioning that she was pushing herself even after failing the tryouts inspired her to stay there. And that she found a place to stay. It's at a friend's house. An acquaintance house of my mom's. Yes.
No.
His house. His house,
No.
of course.
No.
Shocker. So yeah, now the girl that he's in love with, Chinatsu, his senpai, is now living with him.
So are they step siblings now?
Yeah, probably, huh? We'll find out that later on. And she's like, oh, yay, good. Now that Hina can win. Now maybe Hina will actually win. No, Hina is
Their
like...
dad comes in from America and does an arranged marriage between the two of them.
Yeah, he's like, you need to take over the shrine, boy. And he's like, what? Chinatsu's parents own a shrine. You need to marry Chinatsu. But no, what kind of comes from this is that he's, now that she's there, she's striving to, join the nationals. And he obviously feels a little bit... he feels like he can't stand, even if he likes her, he feels like he can never confess or be with her because she's a shining beacon. Like everybody's looking forward to her. She's standing out from the crowd. She's got her future ahead of her as a basketball player, and he's not very good at badminton. He's trying, but he's not that good. So he's got to shape himself up. So he's trying to get better at badminton. Eventually gets paired up with one of his senpais on his badminton team as a pair, and he starts pushing him a lot. He's getting better at the whole game. But yeah, we also have Hina, which is best girl who will never win, but she's there in order for us to cry because she's obviously not going to win, but she's trying. Obviously likes Taiki. She's in the gymnastics team, and she's like somebody that's known Taiki for a long time. And yeah, she's obviously in love with him, and she's trying to be a wingman for him. It's like, girl, not only are you madly in love with him, obviously, but you're also trying to help him with Chinatsu, which is kind of sucks.
That's all right. She's got Nukamizu.
Yeah, there you go. She could get with Nukamizu. But yeah, that's the setup so far. They had like this little fake out for a minute with Chinatsu being with what the badminton guy that he was paired up with, but that just didn't turned into nothing. So my thoughts on the series so far. Visually beautiful. Show looks so freaking good. This is probably one of the best looking romance series to date. I mean, yeah, obviously Danger with My Heart had its own style. It was absolutely breathtaking. But this is a very, very, very good looking show. The only downside is like every now and then they'll show like the whole gymnasium full of people practicing and they use a little bit of CGI there, but it's not much. It visually looks really good. The lighting, perspective shots, great. Outside the visuals, it's a solid setup so far. Like it's a solid established romance. The idea of him, I like that it's got sort of a reasoning for the romance typically, which isn't bad. Typically you'll have like they seen each other and doki doki. There's an inspiration aspect to this, both being in sports. Obviously, their goals and their futures in their sport. They're trying to practice and get better and go towards nationals. That's where they want to shoot for in order to eventually go pro, basically. And so there's a little bit element of both of them sort of inspiring each other. Him seeing how hard she was working, despite the fact that she failed. She keeps pushing herself. She's there every single morning, super early. He's kind of trying to, reach her, get up to her level at some point. Getting into why he's into badminton, how he's not really a team player. He's tried basketball before, despite the fact that his mom was a basketball star. He didn't want to do that because he didn't want his failures to affect others. He wanted to be the center of the stage. Like, my own faults, my own successes are my own. Gets into all that kind of stuff. It's all a good setup. Like I said, the romance so far, solid setup. I like Chinatsu. Super cute, very driven, very so much got a goal and she's pushing herself. You can see that in her perspective, the way that she appreciates Taiki for supporting him, making her feel comfortable in the house and all that kind of stuff. Like Hina, she's an absolute dork. Love her to death. She's a gremlin. She's a Yuki gremlin. We have 2 Yuki gremlins this season. I like how whenever we have a gremlin character, I'm always going to refer to them as Yuki now. Yuki of Roshidari. She's a little gremlin. I love her to death. Very beautiful character. Doing the gymnast. When she's doing her little performances, gymnastics and whatnot, super gorgeous. Just seeing her interact with Taiki, expressing how much she feels like he's a good person, how he strives very hard, kind of inspires her a little bit as well. Their interactions were fantastic. And she's, like I said, very mischievous. Now, some might be asking, Andrew, you're missing a character here. Okay, Taiki's friend, I forgot that one too. Kyo doesn't seem to like Taiki, but he seems to hang out with him. Which gets into my last one, which is, yes, Taiki himself. Why I think Kyo doesn't like Taiki is probably the same reason I don't. Taiki, the main character, is this show's biggest weakness. The main character, the main focus, 99% of the show, his focus, I rarely ever get anybody else's focused. He is not, so far, not a very well-wrote character. Now, I have hopes that this changes. I think I've had a couple people mention that it gets better. It seems like it's starting to push towards that direction, especially with him getting teamed up with Kengo, Haru. It started to get a little bit of personality in there. Taiki's biggest problem is he literally eats, sleeps, breathes, thinks 100% of the time throughout the entire first 3 or 4 episodes about nothing but Chinatsu, which I get. Guys in love, it's hard not to think about the one you're in love with. But this dude literally never thinks about anything but her. Even when he's literally at home talking to his mom, he's thinking about Chinatsu. Like, that's okay. Again, I understand the idea of being in love. The problem is that I've found, in my long history of watching romance shows, I typically find that the shows that have a main character who actually have their own drives, their own struggles, their own things they're dealing with, and they actually think about something besides the love interest. They have friends that they interact with. They talk to the friends about things besides the female character. Turn out to be much better shows in the long run. And so I'm a little bit fearful of this show having the first 3 or 4 episodes having most all the interactions and dialogue in his head all be about Chinatsu. I have fears. He's so far, a very bland character. A very poor, uninteresting character. Even when it came to the badminton, his future, by the way, this boy, his future is badminton. The thing that drives him to be better at badminton, what is it, Chris? What do you think drives him to get better at badminton?
He tripped in a hallway one day.
No.
No?
You're not listening to me, apparently. Chris is not even paying attention to what I'm talking about.
Yes, I am.
Chris is zoned out.
Chinatsu, obviously.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. You saved it.
See, I made a joke, and apparently you just automatically thought I
always assume Chris ever listens to me when I talk about shows that he's not watching. It's just like they got this like 1,000-mile stare while he's looking at me like, ball. Yeah, his driving force he doesn't think about I need to get badminton so I can be, I don't know, pro. I can make a living being. I like badminton. I enjoy it. I want to be a future pro badminton player. I don't know, job, my future, college. What are we doing with the rest of my life? He's at this point in his life where he's got to be starting to think about his future. His driving force is that he wants to be able to stand next to Chinatsu. If I'm a badminton player, I can't stand next to her.
But see,
I can't go out with her because they'll see me as less than her because she's a star. Really? That's your driving force? Whatever.
You're not understanding. This is the proper way of a yandere.
He's yandere?
Yes, obviously.
Oh, this is dude, that would be so wicked. If it's like one of those moments where it, like, 13 episodes in, suddenly there's a reveal and he's in the bathroom looking in the mirror and he suddenly just realizes and his finger comes up and his finger's actually cut and he just goes like this. Chinatsu. And he just writes a heart on the mirror. Chinatsu. Forever, you and me, Chinatsu. No, he just... and it cuts over to the bathtub and freaking King goes in there dead. The guy that he thought that Chinatsu was going out was him and Chinatsu were going out. It's just even though literally in this recent episode, Kingo reveals that he has a girlfriend. He's not actually going out with Chinatsu. He's not even interested in Chinatsu, but he'll literally still kill him because he's got
a little too close.
Too close. You're walking together. But I'm not going out with her. I have a girlfriend. You got too close. Anyways, all of that aside though, it's a solid start. Visually still looks good. I just hope that they do more with Taiki. Taiki needs some personality. He needs something. Please give me something. Give him some interaction with some other characters that's not talking about Chinatsu, and I'll enjoy it. But
if I can't have you, the screen turns black.
Yeah. And hopefully Hina finds somebody else quickly. Please don't drag out this third wheel thing. Just break her heart. Let her move on already. We know she's not going to win. Stop making her cute, standing off the side, being all mischievous with a little gremlin grin. She's too cute. It's too cute. Anyways, what else? Again, I really need to move this list to the top. I'll become a villainess who goes down in history. Did you watch that one?
Mm-hmm.
Good, because we want to hold off on that one if not. I'll become a villainess who goes down in history, or rekeshi ni nokoru okujo ni naru zo.
There might be an episode I missed because I think it popped up this week.
The last one I watched, she just got into the school. She just got enlisted to go to the school. They just finally did the time jump. She's about to join the academy. I think that's where I left off.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that.
Did you see her visit the academy?
Last thing I seen was...
you at least got to the point where everybody was freaking out about him.
The king was talking to her.
Yeah, because they discovered she's an abnormal.
Yeah.
Okay, you got to the decent punchline point. Streams on Crunchyroll, running for 13 episodes, being done by Maho Films. Light novel is a source, comedy, fantasy, romance. I have such a hatred for Maho Films. Does anybody realize that yet? I have this weird hatred for Maho Films. It's like there's so many of these shows where I'm like, I actually really like this show, but it's so off. Anyways, this one follows Alicia, who one day she awakens to the fact that, oh, she's an isekai. She was somebody in another life where she played Otome games. This one Otome game, she did not like the main heroine. She liked the Villainess. And now she's been reborn as that Villainess. And so she's super happy. She's like, this is so freaking great. I'm going to become the greatest villain ever. And then quickly she's like, hey, she wants to go study. She's like she's greeting her mom, which is kind of freaking her out. She's like, trying to, get her brothers to train her in swordsman. And they're like, you do 100 push-ups and sit-ups a day, and then we'll train you. She literally starts doing that. She gets really quick at it. Like, she does it. She tries it once, but she struggles. The second time she does it, she just breezes through it. So obviously she's getting stronger. Eventually she confronts her brother about training her. The heroes of the story, the love interests, they all show up at the estate. And she ends up confronting them while they're there about being trained. And she wants to, again, make this big, great first impression to all the love interest options that she is so villainous. And so she's like trying to push them to train her, and is like, yeah, later on. So she's like knocks down this apple and cuts it in half. And then that just completely impresses everybody. But yeah, after this, she's still training the magic. Eventually, the prince, who's like the main love choice, the Duke Seeker is his name. He becomes kind of interested in her, so he keeps dropping by the house on a regular basis, and they're very quickly picking up on the idea that obviously seems like this prince likes Alicia. So yeah, he keeps dropping by and trying to see her, and she kind of gets doki. Like, he's the only. Again, she really liked the Villainess. She doesn't like the main heroine. Duke Seeker was the only one of the guys that she actually liked. And so it's kind of nice that he's like actually interested in her, despite the fact that she was trying to show how evil she is. Eventually, this catches the interest of the king. He wants to know who this Alicia is that his son keeps talking about. So he pays a visit to her, wants to meet her. And yeah, for some reason, randomly asks her what she thinks about the state of the kingdom. And she, wanting to be the best villain ever, quickly says, I think everything's kind of terrible. You have all these people that are commoners that are not doing very well. She even goes, when they had a whole bunch of the main dukes or the main noblemen that were there, she literally calls out the fact that if you don't have magical powers in the society, you're not deemed as worth anything. Like, all status seems to be given to those that have noble names, and it's just people that have magic. Everybody that doesn't have magic are left to like this outer boundary and left to suffer. And so she's basically calling all that stuff out in order to look like a best villainess. But again, everybody's kind of just shocked by this and kind of impressed by that. Or the king's impressed. There's a couple of the noble guys that didn't like the fact that she was saying that, because that's their tradition. If you have a noble name and magic, that's your status. But yeah, it'll eventually lead to her brothers going off to the academy, which is part of the main sequence of the actual game, is the academy where the heroine meets all the boys. And so she wants to kind of sneak in there and peek in on the main heroine lady, which doesn't actually turn out to be the person of the game. Like, she looks completely different. She doesn't even recognize her. So there seems to be some sort of altercation to what the game kind of plays out, which is kind of interesting. Eventually, she does go out to the outer stretches outside of their area to meet the commoners and see how they're suffering, which that's a whole bit there. Eventually, she does learn magic, which turns out to be a bad thing, because apparently people do not start learning magic until they're 13, and she's basically was like at level 50 magic at 10. So they're starting to freak out. They're calling her an irregular or something like that, which is basically, back in the past, there was a person who mastered magic at an early age, before 13. And they got to the point where they were trying to cast a spell, like level 100 spell or something like that, and they lost control of it and it destroyed them or something like that. Or they weren't able to use magic ever again. So they're kind of afraid once they find out that Alicia knows magic at 10. And so the king, has her, essentially, a bunch of people monitor her and train her so that she doesn't lose her power, which leads to her being able to join the academy at 13. So that's kind of where I left off so far. So, what's your? Yeah, she also has a boy that she met in that outer area that she brought medicine to, and he's kind of a little snotty kid. So she gets snotty back at him, and eventually he joins her as like a subordinate. So that's interesting. What's your thoughts?
So far, I'm actually really liking the show. I don't know. The Villainous shows just kind of work for me, and this one is not much of a difference. I really like the kind of her emphasizing the idea that she's going to be diligent and train hard and practice hard and study hard. I get an absolute kick out of her mind jumble anytime she's trying to figure out how she can sound as villainous as possible whenever she's trying to talk. She doesn't want to say something normal and not come off as a villainous. Not quite sure about the prince thing yet. It's not really selling that to me yet. But as far as everybody else, it's fun and interesting. So I'm having fun with it.
I think my favorite part was when she shows up at the school, and there's like the brother and the other like boy love interest. They're all in the classroom together, and these two girls are gossiping. They're talking about like, "Hey, did you hear about this girl that was in this one other classroom, and she's answering that question that's always really difficult because apparently they put on this plaque this really hard question, and then people can come in there and answer it." And apparently, like, they're just talking about there's somebody in there, like, literally on the chalkboard writing out this answer. And they're like, what was the question? It was like, how to gain control over an entire region of this one region. And so they're like, it can't be. It's totally going to be. And they go there and they walk in there and she's just writing this most villainous thing possible, which literally requires them to, they cut off their trades or whatever to force them into an economic collapse. And then they come in there acting as if they are aiding them in this economic collapse, in which point they take over. Like they're literally causing them to lose, to crumble, and then coming in acting like they're saving them, and then allows them to take control of the zone. And she's writing this out, and then she finally just turns and looks over at them, and the brother's like, Alicia! It was like so cute. I love that a little bit. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I think it's working really well. Again, I don't like how it visually looks. It's super Maho. Maho has a problem with wonky character designs, an absolute inconsistency in character designs. I absolutely hated every shot that she was working out in her bedroom because her limbs were just so off. Her practicing sword swinging, her legs look all weird. Like just the proportions of the character and the legs and limbs just they're weird. They're just so off. It's the same problem I had with everything else. Like, By the Grace of the Gods had the same problem. That level, was it level 2 skill or something like that? The one with the guy and the lolly hammer girl, where he would shoot things and they would turn into the items that he would keep, whatever. Same thing. They just have a massive problem with consistency. That all said, I do love Alicia's personality. I like the concept of her trying to be villainous and it always comes across as wrong, but I honestly don't think this show's doing very good with it. Like, it doesn't do well enough that she does something super sinister and everybody accepts it. Except for maybe the interaction with the king. I think that where the interactions with the king and that one chalkboard incident, that's about the only times where it's really felt like she's doing something diabolical and it blows up in her face. All the other times just really feels like she's like, I do something incredible and everybody likes it. And it's not really like she's doing something villainous. Unless it's just really kind of trying to emphasize that she sucks at being a villain. That's really what it is. Not so much that it's interpreted wrong. The only time where it really kind of felt like it blew up in her face was with Liz. Like this whole situation where they come to her wanting her input on what to do for the festival because it's open campus. So they want to get her insights into what to do for the festival. And she doesn't want to get involved with it because Liz is there and she doesn't want to have anything to do with the heroine. Like she doesn't want to get involved with her. Doesn't like her. And this Liz girl is just super nice and she doesn't like it. She thinks that whatever this heroine does is superficial. She's fake. She's being nice because she wants to be accepted by everybody. Obviously, that's what you do in the game, right? You're appeasing everybody in the game in order to gain their love. And so she feels like Liz is kind of that character. She's playing it out. Everything she's doing is fake. And so she keeps kind of purposely pushing her back, constantly pushing her back. And eventually until the point where it's like, everybody's like, Alicia, chill. Like, why are you being so mean? Like, it's finally, for once, it feels like she's literally being the villainess, and it almost feels like uncomfortable because nobody likes it. But then it goes into her using her magic in front of everybody and everybody freaking out because she's not supposed to use magic. So I don't know. I think my biggest struggle I think I really have is it almost feels off with the stuff with Will and the citizens outside the zone. Because it almost feels like the direction I feel like it's going, but I'm not really sure, is it almost feels like Alicia is trying to be the supporter of the ever people, like the outsiders, the commoners. There's this emphasis that she's trying to help the people that are the commoners that are suffering because she feels like if the heroine's seen them, she would do something. So she feels like she has to do something to help those that are suffering simply because if the hero were here, she could pull it off. So I feel like I have to pull it off. I have to save these people. Otherwise, she outdoes me. And so I'm not really sure if their point they're going to do here is having her thinking that she's a villain by helping the commoners is going to somehow make her look like a villain. I don't know. I really don't know what the whole deal is with the area outside the barrier. That's the only part that I'm not really understanding. I know that she originally went there because she wanted to prove it if it was true or not. She didn't like the idea of taking other people's opinion. She wanted to see it for herself. She's seen it. She's seen suffering. It looks bad. But she keeps going there over and over again and bringing supplies and medical supplies but to what goal? Now, we did get some insights from the guy that she meets there, the guy that was blind, finds out about the fact that I'm assuming that he might be the person they were talking about that lost control because he said that he had powers and he lost it. But either way, he apparently used to be useful, and then when she lost his usefulness, he was discarded. But I'm trying to figure out, why are we spending so much time out here? What eventually will this lead to? Because it doesn't feel like this is at all has anything to do with this. that's I think the only part that I'm really kind of struggling with. I'm not sure if you got something else differently out of the whole.
I haven't seen that yet.
You should have at least met Will. Yeah.
No, I only seen the first part where she met the king, and the king was she told the king that
Oh, so you only got to the first meeting with the king,
yeah,
not the second meeting with the king. Because I think she might have met the king or met Will after that. So
whatever episode was this week is I didn't see.
You're like, if anything, not even 2 episodes out, or not 2 episodes in. I think because I think she meets Will like, I think in episode 2. I want to say that she met Will in episode 2. Yeah. Yeah.
It's fine.
I think so. But anyways, it's good. I'm enjoying it. And I can't really peg exactly what part of it I really do like. I think it's really just an Alicia. I can't really say that I care much for any of the characters, except for I think her family's solid. Like Henry and Alan, and they're protecting of Alicia, her father, the king. They're fine characters. They're not incredible characters, but they're fine characters that really do support the story. But it really is a character. It is really a series that's probably carried mostly by Alicia. So hopefully it keeps up to that. I've been enjoying it so far though. So let's do tying the knot with the Amagami sister. Do you like an Amagami sister, Chris? Who's best Amagami sister, Chris? Go.
Gray hair.
Gray hair? The Yuki character?
If you want to call her that.
It's the Yuki character. That's my other Yuki character. Tying the knot with an Amagami sister, Amagami Sanchi no Enmusubi. This one's streaming on Crunchyroll. Going to be going for 2 cours, 24 episodes. Being done by Studio Drive. The source is a manga, and the genres are comedy, drama, ecchi, and romance. And this one follows Yuryu Kamihate, and he is going to go live at a shrine. He's going to high school. He's trying to get into a really good college because he wants to become a doctor. And he is told by this Mahiru that he needs to go there and stay at the shrine. When he gets there, he immediately finds 3 shrine maidens. These are sisters, Asahi, Yuna, and Yae. Very quickly, he realizes he's about to open a door to one of those scenes where you walk in and you see them all in their underwear, and he stops himself. He knows full well not to open that door. Unfortunately, they open the door for him, and he gets a full sight of all of them in their underwear.
And they beat the crap out of him.
No, Yuna just throws salt on him. That's their joke in this one. It's not a punch. It's a salt.
Not a pan.
Yuna throws salt on him. That's the joke. But no, very quickly the old man shows up. He is introduced to each one of them. Comes to find out, you had Asahi. She is the youngest. She wants him to call her little sister, and she wants to be his little sister. Yuna, which is the middle one, she's like a very kind of hardworking type of character. And then Yae is the big sis type character. She wants him to call her big sis because she's the oldest. But yes, the old man shows up. He informs them that, oh, by the way, yeah, we're letting you stay here, but the agreement was that you marry one of the Amagami sisters, and then take over the shrine. That way I can retire. And very, very quickly, yes, everybody's like, wait, what? Nobody agreed to this. Yuru is like, no, I can't take over the shrine. I'm going to college. I'm becoming a doctor. And he's like, don't worry about it. Once you take over the shrine, you can have another job. You can have a second job. It's okay. It's like, no, I don't agree to any of this stuff. I don't have time for any of this stuff. His whole goal is that he wants to become a doctor. He can't mess with any of this other stuff. Well, then the old man's like, well, that sucks. I was actually going to recommend you to a really good high school that has a great acceptance rate, that a really good college. And he's like, okay, I'll help you. I'll do this. I accept. And he's like, hopefully. He figures by the time he finishes high school, the old man will forget about it, and then he can just sneak out kind of thing. So, yeah, what follows this is you have the whole ordeal where, yes, mainly Yuna, they're trying to figure out ways to push him out of the house, which is making him do a bunch of chores and just work him to death until he gives up. He actually does. He goes, they basically have him do the laundry, at which point he just, he like gives no Fs. He's just putting all the underwear up on the clips. And then eventually he actually turns over and says, where's the punch that goes with this bra? Like, he just doesn't care. Puts all the clothes up, and then they're all embarrassed the entire time. They make him cook, which he cooks really good, even though he has no ingredients to cook. And they even pull the worst of the worst. They knew the deepest, the ultimate weapon, basically, to push him out of the house. Make him clean Yae's room. Which Yae is like an art student in college, and she just has none of it together. Like, her room is a filthy mess, which he, again, cleans it, pulls it off. But then again, he says, I can't do it. I'll leave. Sorry, guys. This can't work. Yeah, I can't spend all this time doing all these chores. I have to study. Like, all of his free time, he just does nothing but study. So he decides to go back to the orphanage that he actually lived from. They follow him home to find out that he used to live in an orphanage. Because, yes, we find out that seems like his mother has passed away from an illness. The orphanage itself takes in kids that their parents are in the hospital, and they take care of the kids as their parents are in, being medically taken care of. So that kind of, yes, Mahiru, the lady that runs the place, she's like a doctor. So it seems like that probably inspired him. He wants to work on this stuff. They also had, like, previously before this, there was a little bit emphasis on how, yes, obviously the 3 Amagami sisters being shrine maidens, they believe in the idea of prayer and these charms and whatnot, whereas Uru doesn't. He believes in the idea, instead of praying, do it yourself. Don't expect some deity or something to help you. Do it yourself. It emphasized the idea that when his mother was, ill, he was constantly praying for somebody to save his mom, and it seemed like she passed away. And so he believes in doing everything yourself. That's why he wants to become a doctor, so that if somebody's ill or whatever, he can take care of them. He'll do it with his own hands. So that's all that emphasis there. And eventually he comes back home, and They have a little bit of a falling out there, but then eventually kind of turns this idea of him having no really a choice. The mama of the orphanage is like, I set you up that place so you get the hell out of here. Get out of here. Handle it. You ain't gonna have a problem doing chores over there. Handle your own business. It's time to leave the nest, basically. That's like kind of pushes him back to spending time with her. The next episode is really just they go through the whole like the grandpa sets them up to each have like a marriage meeting kind of thing where he spends a little bit of time with each one of them. So with Asahi, she immediately is like, oh, I really want to do something together with you. And she starts pulling down her kimono and it just end up having like a tracksuit underneath it. She wants to go for a run. So they go running together for a while. That night, she ends up having him help her get some new shoes out of the shed, and they get trapped in there together. We get a little bit of insight of Asahi being a little bit more vulnerable in the idea that she's afraid of being in closed locations. Because like after the run, he ends up walking in on her because she didn't close the door. And it was like a joke in that scenario because she's like, oh, you see me naked kind of thing. But it's actually, come to find out, she just doesn't like closed locations. That's why she leaves it open. So there's a reason for the ecchi, Chris. There's a story reason
we're getting
why.
ecchi again?
There's a story reason why he's seen her naked. But no.
We got more ecchi?
There, yes, ecchi.
It's almost no itchy in this show.
No itchy?
No etchy.
No itchy?
No etchy.
There's no itchy? But no, Yuna's meeting, she basically very quickly climbs onto him and starts pulling down her kimono and saying, let's do it. Give me a kid to take, be the heir of the shrine. They kind of joke later on that it might be that she was being so forceful on him because she just wants to save her sisters from having to get with him. And then eventually he has a meeting with Yai, which she actually runs away, and he ends up finding where she was at because he knew what she was drawing and knew where to go to where she would possibly be drawing that. And she got a little moment with him and her like not realizing that he would want anything to do with her, and hey, which one do you want to choose? Would you choose me kind of moment. And then he falls and the charm saves his life, which during time he sees a flash of his future, which he becomes a doctor. And the name on his name tag is Amagami. So he apparently marries him, and it sort of implies that he marries all three of them. So he might actually have a harem ending, Chris.
Yeah.
Who knows? I would like that. It's one of those things where it's like, is it real? Is it the possible future? Or is it a tease? Is it implying that don't worry about which one he gets with them all. Don't worry. Don't fight. I don't know. That'd be interesting. But anyways, what's your thoughts on tying the knot with an Amagami sister?
My joke aside, my biggest issue with this show is the comedy is not that strong. It's not heartwarming enough to kind of lift it out. I'm hoping that maybe that'll change a little bit later. And I mean, and then there's not enough ecchi. So it's like, there's nothing here to kind of make it stand out. I like it, but the characters are cute. Dude's kind of cool, but there's not, like I said, there's not much to pull it out of the barrel. So hopefully it'll pull together. I'm gonna watch it because I like harems. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I want to say that it's got like one ecchi moment per episode. Really, is what it is. Like first episode's obviously the walk in with them all, in their undies, and then the second episode is getting into the whole. Was that in the first episode with the whole like? I think it was the second episode where he was doing the laundry for them. They have a fall on each one of them segment, but that's not really ecchi. But then yeah, again, the walk in with Asahi, Yuna climbing on top of him, and Yai with the third episode. So it kind of kicked back into that stuff. But I don't think it's really kind of trying to be ecchi. It could be more, honestly. But that was kind of my argument really that I had with my first impressions was in my video was that. Yeah, it's got an ecchi tag, but it's not really ecchi. So if you're looking for ecchi, better options out there. I mean, you're getting. I feel like with the thigh close-up shots of Grieving Soul, that show feels more ecchi than the show. But yeah, I don't really feel like it seems like the ecchi is its focus. I really do feel like this is kind of it's kind of one of those cases where it's obviously going for a very kind of trope setup. Like this is literally harem setup 101. It's guy goes to shrine, has to marry one of the beautiful girls in the shrine and take over the shrine. It's that, or going to the apartment complex and all the girls are there from the college nearby, and which one does he choose, kind of thing. It's a setup of guy comes to place and pick girl. And I think it's gotten all that stuff out of its system, especially like episode 1. It almost felt like it's like, let's just have each one of them have a walk-in with him falling on one of them. And it literally is obviously doing it as a joke. And it does kind of feel like, okay, are we just getting this out of our system really quickly? Like, are we just like, get the tropes out of the way and then we'll move on to something else? I think it's into the whole thing where, yes, Yuryu and his dislike of praying for things rather than doing it yourself. Having that brief moment of him almost relapsing and doing it once again to help them find that ribbon, because each of the girl has this tie knot that was given to them by her mother, and it's really special to them. So he goes to look for it himself rather than pray for it, but then he ends up praying anyways. So it gets in that whole thing. I think the whole segment with the orphanage, I think, gives me a lot of promise for the storytelling of it, in that it really kind of gives me an insight into Yuru as a character, that he's a decent dude. I think from the very beginning, he didn't seem like he was a likable guy, but he does seem like a decent guy. He's got a driving force. And he doesn't want anything kind of distracting from that. That whole segment with the mom of the orphanage was super great. Like, some of that really is pushing back on him, saying, grow up, get out there. I ain't going to take care of you forever. Get out of the nest kind of situation there. But also kind of giving insight into the girls that this is a boy that just doesn't... Well, it was more his childhood friend. The childhood friend who showed up really kind of explained the idea that he's just not good at communicating. This is a guy that just doesn't really socialize with people well and express himself well. But even in that moment, having him express a scientific way of the prayers. Because, for those who don't know, it's what was it called? The 1,000 cranes thing. They make these crane drapes. Yeah. It's just tons of cranes that they just make a whole bunch of them, tie them all together, make this massive drape out of it. And then they take them to the hospital rooms and they hang them up. And it's like, yeah, with all the Amagami sisters, they're obviously going to see this as a prayer. You're doing this in order to show the importance of the persons, that they get well quickly. With Uru, he still makes them, but from his perspective is that you hang this up inside the hospital room, and the doctor will see how much work you put into it, and they'll take extra care in taking care of your parents. It's an idea of showing the importance of the patient to the people, that they'll work harder to get them better. So he's going to get, again, acknowledging the importance of the cranes, but at the same time seeing it from a scientific, grounded, and by your own hands type of mentality. So I do like that there's kind of there's a little bit of a storytelling with the Amagami sisters and him as sort of a spiritual versus realist type of mentality here. Anti-religious, he's not anti-religious, he just... by your own hands. And over here, by prayer hands. By the spirits, by your own works. And I do like that there's a little bit of a... not that they're at each other's throats over it, but they both see things differently. I'm curious if they can do something with that going forward. Because obviously it does seem like it's implying that he's sort of seeing the effects of what they're doing, and that could change his mind.
It already has shown a couple times that this can become a contentious thing between them. Not necessarily that they're going to get really crazy, but it does seem like there's a contention, especially between, I want to say it was Yuna and him, which obviously she's probably going to be the main girl, but...
no, they all win in the end.
They've already implied that there's a spiritual element with the kind of only at the background, kind of catching the
yeah, I was wondering if that's the mom. I don't remember. I don't remember what color hair the mom was. Of course, they didn't. I don't think they really showed the whole body, but there was somebody sitting on one of the archways, and they created a gust and it knocked it out of the nest, and it fell on Yuna's head.
So I think that there's going to be a contention between the two of them, but he's going to slowly see that there's going to be spiritual elements, and she's probably going to see that what he does with taking it by the hands is going to be a good thing, so that they can eventually come in the middle.
This girl's ain't got nothing together. Like, this girl is don't rely on this girl. Like, there's like, she's breaking down, and Asahi's having to, like, you know, console her and comfort her, and she's like, you just never have anything together, in her bedroom just being a total mess. But then having that whole little moment where she's out at the shrine drawing stuff, and he comes and meets her, and she's just out of nowhere, like, this girl's like, okay, yeah, I'm interested. It definitely did a good job of kind of selling me on each one of them. I really do like all three of the girls. Obviously, again, Asahi's still best girl, but still, it at least did a good job of kind of presenting each one of them. It does have to be really kind of positive for the future. I think it's one of those cases where it feels like it's got a lot of the setup and introductions out of the way. Like, I feel like these first episodes were really solid to introduce them. Here's the concept. This is what we're doing. Get all that stuff out of the way. Now what? So I'm very interested to see what they're going to do with 2 whole cores. I've heard a lot of positive things about the series, so I'm hopeful that this will be hopefully a series that kind of breaks out of the mold of typical harems and does something good. So, or it can turn into another couple cuckoos. Hopefully not. Couple cuckoos are terrible after a while. I'm hopeful though. I'm hopeful. I guess we can wrap things up with ReZero. Are you finally able to talk about ReZero?
I could.
What's your thoughts on ReZero season 3 so far, Chris? I guess I can give you some stuff over here on your screen. Are you liking Wrath so far?
Wrath was freaking nuts. Yeah, I would have to say Wrath is my favorite of the.
Oh, by the way, spoilers for season 3 of ReZero. By the way, you guys didn't realize yet. We're like what 3 or 4 episodes now at this point. I mean, an hour and a half, and then 3 more episodes after that. I think it's 3 episodes after that, right?
I find it funny because I knew that it was going to happen at some point. The watching that that entire hour and a half, it was like you were going on, and this story is like unfolding, and you're like, okay, cool. We're introducing Reinhardt's daddy, Kendra Asuda. I was blown
so
away.
Mad. I'm like, fix this character so fast. I'm mad. Why do you have to? Well, it's like, I don't know how important he will be in the future, but it's like, this guy almost feels like he might not be that important for very long, and it's like, why would you give Kendra Asuda to this guy? And then Aoyuki pops in as Lust. It's like, damn it. We're bringing in the S tier seiyus out of nowhere.
Yeah, going in and trying to get this kind of back and forth between Reinhardt and his grandfather, suddenly just dumping daddy in the middle of the two. But yeah, going into just building up this story and getting to this kind of punchline, and then all of a sudden, oh yeah, by the way, go man. It's like, yep, it's time. Everything's gonna get dark. So yeah, I had a blast with that. It just I like that they are building this up, and it's an almost unsurmountable odds that Subaru is kind of going up against. He's already pulled in all of his ace cards, and all of them got trounced.
That was the interesting thing is, like, and a lot of people pointed this out when it happened, is like Wrath is the ultimate anti-Reinhardt, because it's like,
yeah,
it's one of those situations where Natsuki has to kind of figure out how to get around the situation without utilizing his strongest allies, because he found that out very quickly. Oh, there's a cultist, Archbishop here. Reinhardt's here. Let's just pull out this I win card. Reinhardt. Play Reinhardt, and it'll fix it, right? No, literally, Reinhardt kills everybody. It's like, and I knew it was happening. Like, the moment that he's walking up there and Subaru's like, something feels off. And I'm like, dude, he's going to kill everybody. Everybody's eyes are red. Now, I did, at the time, granted, we don't know yet that Sirius themselves will affect anybody with the red eyes. We've found out that by dropping the boy with red R's and everybody else is connected, they all die. But will that be the same on Wrath herself? And sure enough, slice. I'm like, it's gonna happen. Yep, everybody's dead. And that's what I was talking about when we were talking about that. I'm like, I almost want to see that the world left behind. Like, could you imagine how destroyed Reinhardt was after that?
Yeah.
Having killed everybody. Somebody was like, yeah, having done that to Subaru. I'm like not just Subaru, like the children, all these innocent people. Like, this is a guy that's like, he wants to protect people. This is a good dude. This guy's all about justice. And he just killed a whole bunch of people. Now, again, not his fault, but there was almost a hint. And again, this goes in that whole thing where I almost want like a what if scenario with it, is that there's almost a hint that Reinhardt, the moment he did it, he realized what he did. Like, I mean, it makes sense. Everybody's body cut the same exact way. It almost implies by doing this, I did this. Like, it's a cause and effect. So I think it would mess him up bad.
And he's already pretty much messed up with what was implied with him and his grandfather.
Yeah,
so you know that's gonna
got daddy issues.
And he's got daddy issues.
Dude, Felt was so good in that scene, by the way. I love that whole bit because you had Priscilla's there and you have that guy, the father's just railing in. I'm not going to give you the name, this family name. I'm going to give it to her. You're done. You're finished. And then Felt's just over there like, hey, Reinhardt, lift your chin up. Don't look down. I was like, damn, this girl. I love Felt and Reinhardt together. It's just like, I that's what I was talking about. We were talking about like we did a whole podcast on ReZero, by the way, which is Chris wasn't caught up on it yet. And I want to talk about it. That whole segment with was talking about the picks, and yes, I agree with you. I think that like world wise and everything, it feels like Anastasia is the best pick. But there's a side of me that wants to root for Felt because a lot of it was that scene. Like I just love seeing Felt like what she was willing to do for Reinhardt. Pick your chin up. Like this is a girl that's been through some crap. Felt's been through things, so she's better than anybody to say it's not time to look down yet. We're going to get this. We're going to get your family name back. We're going to take that house. We're going to do all this stuff. It was super good. And then Priscilla like freaks out and takes out that, was a sunblade or something like that out of nowhere. It was a...
I was surprised how solid Emilia was. Just out of nowhere, her just randomly...
Yeah, she wasn't
I
phased.
was like, wow, okay.
Like it... Oh, you mean her fighting?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like...
Wait.
I was like, I guess she's been training. Well, I mean, again, with the whole like, what was that one movie that they had? It showed like she's been out in the middle of nowhere when she was taking care of the frozen people. She was fighting things, but yeah, dual wielding ice blades and stuff, and switching over to a javelin, and she's just. I'm like, what the hell? This girl like been practicing like like she literally she looked like she just came from the Matrix and downloaded like every combat skills. Like she's looking like she's just like what's his name from Matrix just
well, and it's one of those. I mean, it makes sense.
The entire time
it makes sense.
Cute.
I mean, it makes sense that she would the princesses are actually beast, but I mean, you just automatically. I mean, never kind of implied Emilia was that. I mean, she obviously is. You know, she is, but
yeah, I was like But the thing that I got kicked out of that whole segment was like, yes, you have like Wrath the entire time's flipping out, like. You know, you took my man from me, and then suddenly out of nowhere, just Amelia's like, stop. She kept saying that she's like ugly and stuff like that. She's a half demon. And she's like, stop making fun of me. And it's just Emilia sounds so cute when she's just swinging her swords. I'm like, girl, you're so much more brutal physically when you're fighting than how you sound. It still has that almost, again, like I've mentioned before, like it almost feels like she's still a kid. Like Amelia's still a kid. That it almost doesn't match her stature in combat. So what'd you think of Chidari? The Yukata Byako moment?
oh yeah,
It was
I love it.
so freaking cute. It was so freaking cute. The moment I seen that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this. Chris is gonna love this scene. Chidari.
She's so freaking awesome. I love her. Still best girl. She's always gonna be best girl.
Too freaking cute. I love it. No, I was What was the other thing that we had in that whole segment? Yeah, I love Wilhelm's segment. I thought we were done with Wilhelm, honestly. And I don't know why I never really connected him with Reinhardt before, but yeah, getting finally some kind of connection there, the father coming in the picture and just really getting deep dive into this. My current theory that I had on why the big question mark that came up obviously was, why did Wilhelm blame Reinhard? And the only thing I could think about that whole situation is Julius said at some point, or at least gave some extra context there, that Wilhelm wanted to go with his wife to fight the whale. But something came up and he wasn't able to go with his wife. So he wasn't able to be there in her death, or at least to prevent it. He had to be somewhere else. Julius mentioned that there was a prince, or some of the royal family was kidnapped. A child of the royal family was kidnapped. And that was where Wilhelm had to be. But why would he blame Reinhardt for that? The only thing I can think of is that Reinhardt maybe was playing with that royal family member, that child, and they got lost together, and they thought it was a kidnapping, and that Wilhelm had to be there, and that he missed out on what happened with his wife? Or was Reinhardt somehow involved some other way with that child being kidnapped, or if they were even kidnapped? But it all seems to like point to the idea that Reinhardt was somehow involved in that. That's why Wilhelm was not able to be there to protect his wife. And so I'm curious if they'll get back into that whole thing. I'm not sure what your theories are on that.
I didn't dig that deep onto that one because I was still trying to figure out how he blamed himself and blamed the kid and blamed Reinhardt at the same time. So you're a lot more fresher on
it seemed like
rewatch. So
it's stuff they brought in this season. They haven't talked about previously. It was brought up with, like I said, when Julius talked to him after the father basically came into the picture. But it kind of implied the idea that at the grave, at the funeral, that's when he basically lashed out on Reinhardt. And again, I think it's probably because he was somehow involved with that whole situation. And he's just never... He's been so focused on avenging his wife that he never had the opportunity or ever got the courage to tell Reinhardt he's sorry.
Right.
And it's one of those snowball situations which always kind of really suck, but it is what it is. What do you think of Liliana, the songstress? She's a goofball. I almost feel like she has the power to draw out people's desires. And I have a theory on this, and this is because when Subaru first showed up and met her, she was singing about something that seemed so stupid. It was like a horrible song. Like Subaru's like the lyrics of this thing is horrible. It was talking about people struggling, and who was there? It was like common folk. It seemed like they were common folk. Mm-hmm. Subaru makes fun of it, and then everybody attacks him. And then as he's laying there and Byaku's sitting next to him, what does she start singing about? I have two theories on this. The first, the song that she sings is about basically like, you're above that, you're out of my reach or something like that, and I want to reach out to you. Age is like we have this gap in our age and all this kind of stuff. I almost felt like she could either be singing about Beatrice because she looked young sitting next to him, and it's this idea of an age gap romance, and then Super jumps into it, starts singing about it, and I'll eventually reach you, whatever. Or he could possibly be talking about Amelia and the idea that the time gap between how much he loves her and how much time that she loved him, and eventually they'll reach out to each other and all that kind of stuff. But I almost feel like she's able to see into what the people are thinking about and do that. And the big tip off of this, later on, when you have Wilhelm and Reinhardt are trying to make a connection again, what comes over the speakers? She's singing about the Sword Saint.
All right.
Come on. Come on. She's got to know. She's got to have some kind of connection. It could be completely just, yeah, she sung about age gap because she's seen Byaku lay next to him. She sung about people in hardships because she was looking at a bunch of people like commoners.
I absolutely.
And that was just happens to be happenstance. She sung about the Sword Saint at that time.
No, I absolutely think that it has something to do with her power, but
and then suddenly out of nowhere, Priscilla goes over to her and she wants to dance with some nice what do you call it? What's it called? That style? like a Mexican
Maracha.
Maracha? Marachas?
Morocco.
Maracha?
Oh.
Sorry, all of our listeners that are we're bad. Sorry.
I'm probably getting more brutally beat up on now.
It's good though. I really do think that's kind of what they're going with her whole thing. What do you think about Garf? Good Garf moments, dude. So freaking good. Garf and Mimi.
Garf is getting beat down. Right
Garf
now.
and Mimi.
He's gonna come out of this like 10 times stronger. I know he will.
You seen last week's with Garf and Mimi, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, it was so good. I seen somebody posted that page. It's so good. Basically it plays out the same way where they're on that roof, and she's basically saying like, hey, here, you want to cry, right? What are you talking about? You want to cry? She knew that was his mom. It's like, I could smell it. It smells like your mom. She's like, you really want to cry? Here, come to my bosom. I'll embrace you. You can cry in my bosom. They say that the mistress says that what'd she call her? Her master, the Anastasia, basically says that you have to cry into somebody's bosom that you love. And he's like, I don't love you, Chibi, you shrimp. She's like, well, I love you, Garf, so you're welcome to do it here. And I was like, oh my gosh, Mimi, Mimi, no, I love you, girl. But yeah, he just goes and just lets it loose. Like, she just embraces him. He just lets it loose. And the page that I seen, which I'm pretty sure it's probably real, the lines play out the same, but in the entire time in his head, he's going, no, you're the strong tiger. You're the strong tiger. Don't listen to her. She's speaking nonsense. You're a strong tiger. Like, he's telling himself, be strong. I'm strong. I'm strong. And then eventually it just breaks. It just eventually breaks. Like, he's just trying so hard to be strong and powerful, the tiger. And it just gives in. It almost plays into like his innocence. Like, he's still a kid.
Yeah.
Garf is a kid. And I remember that very vividly back when Subaru beat him. There was a lot of emphasis there of playing into the fact that he was very juvenile, very much so a kid. Otto was doing that. He was totally playing into frustrating him. They all did that. Garf is still a kid. So, yeah, him and me are great, though.
And I think that after all of this is said, he's going to come out, like I said,
haunted by Elsa, dude.
Huh?
That haunting by Elsa is so well put, dude. Like, she terrifies the hell out of me. But, like, she just keeps showing up like, you won by accident. You didn't earn that. It was luck. You could never beat me normally. It's like, this guy. Yeah, I think I agree with you. Like, I feel like after, and it's obviously how it's setting up now, is that he's separate from Subaru and Amelia, and it seems like he's been given basically a challenge. Seems like right now it's to go fight Capellia, because Capellia's in that room. She's got the speaker. She's in that room apparently where his mom's new husband is. So I don't know. We'll see. It almost feels a little set up. I'm kind of wondering if Lust will have the ability to control people. Because, I mean, it makes sense for the idea of Lust to be able to control people. I mean, it's technically what Wrath is doing right now, so it might not be really the case. But Wrath's more not controlling people. I mean, it did seem like she was controlling people because for a while there, she was sending them after Subaru. So I guess she is technically controlling people, but it's more making everybody of the same mind is what Wrath's doing. It really does feel like she's making everybody understand the same concept, be on the same page, and thus everybody becomes one. And that's why it's like drop the kid and everybody crushes. Whereas that first death was kind of nuts. Just like everybody's head just gets smashed at the same exact time. Super brutal. Super brutal. Poor Otto's alone with Gluttony. I don't know how long that's going to be. I mean, the assumption here is that Otto might be able to hold back Gluttony for a little bit, but I would assume that maybe, I don't know, who would be able to go and fight Gluttony right now? It's obvious, like I said, Garf is supposed to go off to face off against Lust. Subaru right now is obviously stuck on getting Amelia back from Regulus. Do you agree with me there? That he should have worked alongside Regulus for a little bit there. Like, I'm always about like the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and acknowledging where you have to kind of pick your battles. And so like when you have this whole situation where like Regulus and Sirius are literally facing off against each other, they're not friends. She wants to kill Amelia. Regulus is protecting Amelia from flames, and they're fighting each other. And then Subaru's response is to throw your whip around Regulus's neck. He's like, Subaru, work with Regulus to kill Sirius and then go after Regulus. It's still playing in my theory though in the books.
I think that would have. I think that's what he'll probably end up having to do at some point is playing one enemy against the other.
I think that'd be a perfect choice there because
It's probably going to take him a little while to figure that out, though.
Yeah, I don't. There's so many indications that these archbishops aren't each other's friends. I mean, yes, Sirius was in love with Petalgus, but it doesn't seem like they're friends. It doesn't. They all just follow the book, and it really does play in my theory in this episode. In the last episode, and the idea the bell goes off and they all listen to the book. It does feel like they aren't controlled by the book, but they follow the book. It's almost like it goes in my theory that I think they're getting their orders from the book, not the book controls them. So yes, when the bell goes off, it's like Sirius is in full Yandere mode. You're here for that half devil, and you come in here with that little shrimp Beatrice. I know who you want. You want that half devil. I want to burn you all. She literally thinks Subaru is Petalgus, and she literally wants to kill them all because he betrayed her. But yet the chime goes off. Later on. Like, it almost feels like Resident Evil 4, like when you're fighting like all these crazy villagers and suddenly the chime goes off and everybody goes, oh, time to go for bingo. Everybody just walks towards the church and goes into the church. It kind of feels like that. But yeah, Regulus outchatted Subaru in that scene for sure. Just kicks a little pedal and knocks his leg out. It was brutal. But yeah, that's I think it's been an incredible season already, and I really wonder again if we're 4 episodes in at this point. We have 4 more episodes. I hope it has a good stopping point before that break. I really hope it's not a bad stopping point. Like, I don't know if they can really. It feels like a full out battle's gonna come up here.
They're building this up, so
I mean, he literally went into a room and they have the anti-cultist team up there. They're literally laying out the place. They're talking about how they might flood the place because they have to. Which witch do you think is there? There's a witch's remains there. Which one do you think it's going to be? I'm wondering if it might be Wrath, because she likes creating craters. Wrath likes to create craters, and if there's a big crater in the middle of this water area here, you think it might be Minerva?
I want it to be Pride.
Which one was Pride? The what?
It's Tama.
Oh, okay? Typhoon.
It's Tama.
Oh yeah, that's right. Typhoon was Tama, huh? I remember that. My theories were that it was going to be Minerva because she creates craters, and it's literally a massive crater in the middle of this area. My other theory was that it was going to be Gluttony because they joked about, not really joked, but they sort of like super casually said, what was this a trap for, a mob beast? And technically Gluttony like controls a lot of the beasts. So that was sort of my theory there, but I wonder if it could be possibly Lust too, and that might be why currently it seems like Capella's it seems like she's heading the group. If that might be a complete... I don't have anything to back that up other than the fact that she's on the speaker. Honestly, that's literally the only theory I have there is because it's her and she's on the speaker. I don't know. We'll see, but it's crazy. I really do hope that we have a good stopping point before the next. Again, that's supposed to be what, November? What would be that? 1. So this 5, 6, 7, 8. So the last episode would be on the 13th of November. And then we don't have another episode until February. Ugh. It's gonna suck. It's gonna suck. No matter where they stop it, it's gonna suck. But it's been good. It's been so good. I absolutely love it. It's easily, as much as I love Orb, is still top in the charts for me this season, and I can't wait for more of it. So the only saving grace to this whole thing is that I don't have to worry about it being in our anime of the year this season or this year, because it's gonna be carrying over into winter. It'll just have to be debated next year. But anyways, anything else before we wrap it up? I think we pretty much covered everything that's happened in this season so far. Cheetah? I want Puck to come back, dude. I hope they bring Puck back. They need to go over there and steal that dude's freaking gems and just bring Puck back. Like, dude, this is an emergency. Give me us a gem so we can bring Puck back. I want Puck back. I miss Puck so much, dude.
Well, yeah, we technically have a Puck available for us. We have Gluttony right there. All we have to do is like pop, and we've got a rim back. We've got a witch that's down underneath there, which obviously is going to be Pride, so we can have things just disappearing out of just pure because Tama is freaking awesome.
It's like just makes them crumble out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, I think we'll call it there. We still have way too many shows to go over, and like I said, we'll probably do like 3 or 4 parters, but we'll just take it as we go, like we always do. We don't like to rush things. We'll just hit through each one of them. We'll eventually get through it all. But yeah, hope you guys enjoy these first impressions of the fall 2024 anime season. If you did, before you leave, give us a ranking on podcast of choice if you're on podcasting right now. If you're on YouTube, make sure to hit the like button. If you'd like to support the channel more, we have links in the descriptions on talkaspirit.com, ways to support us. We greatly appreciate you guys' support. And until next time, y'all take care.
Os.